is every single day. It's good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic. That's Porter Larson behind the glass on this Reaction Monday. This reaction to the rivalry game Monday edition of the program. My goodness, do we have a lot to get to on the show today. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot about Utah, BYU, what just happened, and what comes next for both teams. BYU rolled into Salt Lake City and rolled back home with a 22-21 win over the Utes. As a result, they rise to number 7 in the AP poll, and now Utah has lost 5 straight games, heading into Boulder to take on a very good Colorado Buffalo team. That's a 10 a.m. kick time, which means Porter is getting up early on Saturday for pregame coverage starting at 6 a.m. Colorado is a 10-point favorite over Utah. A 10-point favorite over the Utes. The over-under 47.5. BYU tries to continue their unbeaten season coming up against a Kansas team that was thought to be good to start the year. Had a horrible, horrible start to the season, but they're playing better as of late. In fact, BYU's only a 3-point favorite right now over a Kansas Jayhawk team that seems to have figured a few things out as they just trounced Iowa State. They put 45 points on Iowa State after barely losing to K-State. Prior to that, they beat a Houston team that, look, nobody knows anything in the Big 12 or college football, but Kansas looks to be a little bit better as of now than they were a couple of weeks ago. So we'll see if BYU can keep it going. I know it doesn't feel like it, but there are other things going on besides Utah and BYU football. That's right. Life goes on. And other things happen, namely the Utah Hockey Club, who's not playing well, the Utah Jazz, who are the worst team in the NBA, and a bevy of pro and college football going on right now. The Jazz are back in action tomorrow against Phoenix. Going to roll down for that one. Kevin Durant will not play. He has a calf injury. So, yes, there are a ton of things to talk about that we will get to on the show today after a crazy Saturday night at Rice-Eccles Stadium. So that's going to be the bulk of what we do, but we're going to do some other things as well today on a Monday afternoon, because my guess is there are some of you that don't want to talk about that game anymore, and I get it. Week 10 of the NFL season wraps up tonight with a little Monday Night Football. The Dolphins and the Rams from SoFi in Inglewood. The Rams are a 2.5-point favorite. So it should be a fun game. 2 high-powered offensive teams when healthy, a lot of local flavor. Puka Nacua, of course, from the Rams. So Monday Night Football tonight after we say goodnight at 6 o'clock. All right, good guest list for you guys on a Monday. We'll start things off with Dave Fleming. Dave called the game on Saturday night for ESPN. So we'll bring in Dave to see what he has to say about what we all witnessed on Saturday night. Kyle Bonagura from ESPN also in the stadium. I actually saw Kyle from a distance in the press box, but he looked like he was very busy. Kyle had a computer set up watching other games while he was covering Utah BYU. So we'll bring in Kyle today. In case you missed it, a very frustrated and hopefully motivated Kyle Whittingham addressed the media earlier today. We'll bring that back around to you on the program. And Scott Mitchell stops by, former Utah quarterback in the 4 o'clock hour, as does Andy Larson from the Salt Lake Tribune. Dave Fleming, Kyle Bonagura, Kyle Whittingham, Scott Mitchell, Andy Larson, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners on a Monday, and that guy who I watched the game with on the sideline for a little while on Saturday night, Porter Larson, who produces the show.
What's up?
All right, buddy, where are you at today on the chaos that we all witnessed on Saturday night?
It certainly was chaos. It was a really, really fun football game. Obviously, the rivalry, Spence, it's never short on entertainment, right? There's always one fan base that goes home absolutely in dismay, and one fan base that goes home with bragging rights and basically with their holiday season made, right? And it's a real thing that families and church wards, everyone's separated on it. It's almost political in a sense, right? The way that it's split here in the state, and it's always fun to add that emotion, add that urgency to a football game. I think that Saturday there were a lot of things that maybe it went over the top with. I think it's fine if you're a fan and you're getting emotional. If you're a player, you're having an emotional reaction on the sideline. I think when it seeps into other areas, it starts to maybe not look great on the game, but otherwise it was really entertaining. It was really fun, and the finish, although it sent the majority of the fans in that stadium home with a sour taste in their mouth, it was really fun. Controversy for sure. We'll talk about that, and we'll get to it all during the course of the show. But again, a rivalry that for me, I can't wait for the next one. Right as that one ended, it's just a feeling and an energy that you can't really replicate in anything other than college football.
No doubt, no doubt. It was a great night. If you guys were there, you experienced it. If you watched it, you certainly saw the chaos that went down. But let's get to it. Dave Fleming is our first guest. But before we get to Dave, courtesy of our friends at Standard Restaurant Supply. Standard Restaurant Supply, your tailgate headquarters. Get everything you need to make your tailgate epic. Located at 3500 Southwest Temple, online at standardrestaurant.com on a Monday. Time now for your opening tip. Rivalry game comes and goes, and BYU rolls back to Provo with a win. 22-21, your final score. It was fun to be there. I was down on the sidelines for most of the evening, went up to the press box to say hello to some friends around halftime, and that atmosphere was electric. The narrative that was going around last week that Utah fans were not going to show up was entirely incorrect. A lot of Ute fans there, of course, a lot of BYU fans too. That one section there, that's the southwest end zone, the southwest corner of Rice-Eccles Stadium, where the opposing fans usually sit. Certainly more BYU blue there than most of the other visiting crowds. And ultimately, we were treated to what I thought was an excellent, excellent college football game, and a really emblematic of why this game is so special. Always has been, always will be. And BYU gets the win. They moved to 9-0. They're 6-0 in conference play. They escaped with a 22-21 win. You got to give a lot of credit to this young kicker who really has stepped up, this Will Farron kid. Phenomenal mustache on this young man, by the way. He had a couple of clutch kicks last year. He's been nails this year, hit all three of his field goals, including the game winner from 44. And I was standing adjacent to the upright, and right when he kicked it, looked good, and certainly it was. Now, of course, there is a lot to talk about as far as the reaction outside of the game. Now, let's get into a couple of things here. There were some missed calls all game long, and I'm on a couple of different text threads, some with Ute fans, some with BYU fans. First half, my BYU fan bros upset about the face mask call on the Tasker. I believe it was the face mask call when it looked like Isaiah Glasker had grabbed Brandon's face mask, but he actually, if you look at the replay, just kind of grabbed his shoulder pads and his jersey. So BYU fans mad about that because it led to a Utah touchdown. So first half, BYU fans complaining about the refs as Utah took a commanding 21-10 lead. And then, of course, the second half, the script flips, and Ute fans and others certainly upset about the officiating at the end of the game. Okay, so let's dig into a couple of things. It was reminiscent of the missed field goal game back in the day where Ute fans rushed the field. They had to go back. Ute fans rushed the field, had to go back. Doink, field goal missed, and then Utah wins. Because on a couple of different occasions, we all on the sidelines, and I was with a lot of the former players and a lot of people on the Utah sidelines watching with bated breath, we all thought Utah had won two different times. The first time, Kalani, and by the way, let's just say this. If you're upset that BYU was given that timeout, then you're not paying attention. You go back, you watch the replay. Kalani got the timeout in. The problem was it was so loud, the refs allowed the play to go on for about 5 or 6 seconds. Then Jake drops the ball in the end zone, and we're looking around like, what's going on? Oh, they got a timeout. And then Karene gets to Jake, sacks him. Everybody thinks it's over. The ref throws the flag, and then pandemonium ensues. You could tell in that moment something shifted in that stadium, okay? Because it was like, wait, it's over. Okay, there's not a ton of time on the clock, but there's still a minute and change. And Jake has shown all year, Jake Retzlaff has shown all year that he is a playmaker. And if you give him opportunity after opportunity, at some point he's going to make something happen, which he did. And as soon as Chase caught the ball, and I know a lot of people on the sideline thought it was incomplete. I had a perfect view. It was just a great catch from a great wide receiver. And as soon as Chase caught that pass, like a 30-yard pass. Then, the pulse starts to rise a little bit. The anxiety starts to rise a little bit, but the stadium was still loud. It was just nervous, you could tell. And then after that, the 14-yard run by Hinckley Rapati may have been as big of a play all game long that no one's really talking about. And then, boom, they're in field goal position because if you've watched BYU, you know that Will Farron's a hell of a kicker. I guess they call him Big Game Bob or something. I didn't know that. But he has made Big Game Bill, excuse me. That wouldn't make sense. His name is Will. Why would it be Bob? He has made so many big kicks. And again, phenomenal mustache on the kid. So Kyle elects to use a couple of timeouts to try to preserve some time at the end. And you have to wonder out loud if you keep those timeouts in your pocket to try to freeze this kicker. Now, I don't know if it would have made a difference, but no timeouts after no timeouts after burning a couple, try to preserve some time. And so you got to give BYU credit. They were prepared for that moment. Aaron Rodgers did a great job of making sure that the play calling was what it needed to be. And special teams ran out, very organized. Boom, not a lot of pressure from Utah's front. Will kicks it in, no time, ball game over. And then that's when the chaos ensues. And my phone's blown up, and I'm on the field because I'm going to try to, say congratulations to my friends over on the BYU side and try to, kind of understand like what the pulse is around the finality of the game so I can, be prepared to talk about it today on the station. And suddenly, Sean and I on the sideline are forced to dodge a bunch of water bottles. I'm not sure why I was in the crosshairs, but a lot of water bottles were thrown. Why do I bring that up? It wasn't just you, BYU fans, okay? I work for the broadcast partner of the University of Utah. Sean played at the University of Utah. Sean caught a water bottle. I had to dodge a couple. Like, they were just throwing water bottles, which is not okay. It's not. But it wasn't just you. But it is the reaction. And by the way, it's always the reaction after the game that really is the most entertaining part. The game rules, no matter what, every single year. We talked about it last week. I said Utah 21, BYU 20. I was off by 2 points, okay? Because no matter what, talent discrepancy, Vegas spread, more often than not, weirdness happens. Nicole Auerbach called it the weirdest college football game she'd ever seen, and Saturday night got weird. And then it got even weirder, okay? So one of the dynamics of this game that fascinates me is you have, and I'm just going to put this disclaimer so I don't have to say it every single time. I am not blanketing either fan base with the following statements. I'm talking about, generally speaking, what the dynamics seem to be with a certain portion of them. You've got the BYU fans that love the moral superiority. They just love, oh man, do they love it. It's like a warm blanket for them. So if a Ute fan gives a BYU fan any sort of evidence that there's some bad behavior up here, it's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's Twitter, it's text the ward. A BYU fans or a Utah fan said a mean word to me. That's why they're classless. That's why they'll never be us. And then the Ute fan loves to call out the hypocrisy of the moral superiority card that the BYU fan loves to play, right? So BYU fans sending out videos of trash being thrown from the stadium onto the field because students are mad at the officials. I was down there when Utah caught their 7th straight win in the rivalry, and BYU fans were upset at the refs. You know what they did? They threw everything they had. They threw water bottles. They threw cougar tails. They threw gallons of milk. They threw their flavored sodas. They threw their swigs. They threw everything that they had at their disposal at the refs, at Ute players, at Ute coaches, and it was just like it was on Saturday. Y'all don't have a leg to stand on because the receipts are out there, okay? So you have these back and forths where videos are released of I saw this video of a BYU fan wearing a very nice beanie. And it's like a 5-minute video, and I'll summarize it. BYU fan wears BYU gear into Rice-Eccles Stadium in heated football game and has some mean things said to them. Have you ever been to a football game before? Tell me you never leave your bubble without telling me you never leave your bubble. Like, it was beyond me. My reaction honestly was, oh, this is your first time at a football game. And let's be clear, I'm not pro bad behavior, but if you think one side has the monopoly on bad behavior over the other, this is either the first time you've watched this game or you simply never leave your bubble. Because both sides have good and bad behavior. And the arrogance thing is also kind of funny to me because whichever fan base is actually winning is painted as arrogant by the other. So now it's the hubris and the piousness and the judgment and the holier than thou than BYU fan, where for years it was the arrogance and the Pac-12 and in the Pac-12 footprints and rubbing that in our face. And the Ute fans are so arrogant because they are in the Pac-12 and we are independent. And now it's BYU fans are so pious and judgmental because they beat us and they're undefeated. Like it's, and I'm honestly not casting blame one way or the other. I'm just observing the cultural dynamics of what happens after the fact. And it honestly makes this thing as unique as anything that exists in all of sport, not just college football. Because in other college football rivalries, there isn't this, well, in some of them there are, but in this one, it's the reflection of the community that the game really turns out to be. And people reveal themselves on both sides of the aisle. Okay, so we're going to get back to this because we have to catch a break. Dave Fleming is going to join us coming up on the other side. But I have some thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts. I have pages of notes that I was scribbling all weekend long. I have some thoughts on what Mark Harlan said after the game. I have some thoughts on what could be next for Utah football. I have some thoughts on this incredibly impressive season for Brigham Young where they just answer every question that is thrown at them. So we'll get to that coming up in a little bit. We'll probably do that a little bit later on. But Dave Fleming, who was on the call, you got our mic on? Dave Fleming, who was on the call for ESPN, is going to join us coming up next, but live in studio. What are we doing to be so lucky is Dr. Angela Peterson from Lifestyle Men's Health. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Great to see you.
Good to see you.
You've been joining us over the phone, so that's kind of been sad.
I know. Sorry.
But you've been busy.
Yes, we have.
But let's get to it. Okay, Lifestyle Men's Health. You helped about a year and a half ago, we met, and you asked if I'd ever had my testosterone levels tested. I had not. Did some very simple blood work, and you said it's probably a good idea for you to check this out, which I have. And a year and a half later, it really has changed so many things in my life. That, in addition to the Vitality Peptides, have been real game changers. How can you help our listeners with those two things?
We can do a lot of things to help your listeners, but testosterone is super important. And, I don't think a lot of men realize that, you have receptors for hormones really on every cell of your body. So if your testosterone is low, you are just not going to be functioning on all cylinders. And we can fix that. It's real simple. You just need to get some blood work evaluated, and I can get you on your way to feeling better really fast.
And you also have a actual solution for erectile dysfunction. And I know a lot of listeners in the market for like 3 years had a bit of a charlatan experience where they were a bit bamboozled into treatments that actually don't work at all. But yours are different. What makes them different and mostly effective? Well, incredibly effective.
They're really effective. And I'm so happy with how our treatments are working. I just talked to a couple of clients last week that for the first time in about 5 years, they told me they were able to have sexual activity with their partner. And that's super important for relationships. So our treatments are working, they're changing lives, and, value yourself and your relationship enough to do something about it because ED is out there. It affects a lot of men. There's a lot of reasons why. But that's why we do what we do, because we fix it.
All right. Special offer for our listeners who give you a call today. Let's unpack that before I set you loose.
It is still 50% off. And then we are also offering testosterone therapy for 6 months, and that is free of charge.
That is as good of an offer as you guys are going to find. I'm a little upset that they didn't have that offer when I kind of jumped on board. But here's the deal. Just give them a call and ask questions. They'll walk you through it. Lifestyle Men's Health at 385-458-9203. That's 385-458-9203, 385-458-9203, or online at lifestylemensclinic.com. Dr. Peterson, good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Dave Fleming joins us coming up next right here on ESPN 700. a public reprimand. I don't know what that is. I never have. But Mark has been reprimanded publicly. You should all know that. So we'll do that coming up. We have Scott Mitchell on the show today. We're going to play you Coach Witt's comments. We have Kyle Bonagura from ESPN, Andy Larson as well. But batting leadoff, the man who was on the call Saturday night, Dave Fleming, on a Monday. Dave, happy Monday, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Appreciate the time. So here's the question right off the top. I don't know how familiar you are with the dynamic of Utah BYU. So I wondered what you anticipated prior to the game and what you learned as you called it.
Yeah, I don't think I learned anything because I do think I've been there enough now over the last many years to understand. I think I've only done one other of these rivalry games, but enough familiarity with both programs to know what the scene was going to be like. I'll say this, it didn't disappoint. I mean, I think, one thing about rivalry games is that when one fan base is supercharged and another one is feeling kind of down and like things aren't going our way, it can kind of go two ways. Sometimes the team that isn't having a great year, their fans can rise up and make it really feel like a special game. And sometimes it goes the opposite way where, there's not a sort of a defeated mentality, but something like that. Anyway, Utah players, fans, coaches certainly didn't let that happen. And so, it was just a great game to be a part of. It is people say unique rivalry, and that's, it's just a sort of a bad term to use in college football in general. But there isn't another rivalry in the whole sport that is as interconnected as that one is, where coaches have been on both sides, where players and their families have been on both sides. There's nothing like that in the country. So it makes it different than almost every other great rivalry, and it makes it great what it is. So that's a long way of saying it was really fun to be there on Saturday night.
I genuinely wish I did not have to ask you about the holding call, but I do, because obviously that's topically the big thing here in the market. How did you kind of digest that entire thing when Ute fans thought they won, then BYU got a timeout, then Ute fans thought they won, and BYU got the holding call? And, I heard what Brock had to say as he walked people through the call. That replay has been going all over the place in the community. But what was that moment like for you, and what's your opinion on how it went down?
Well, that's probably two answers to that. Number one, while the whole thing is happening for us in the booth, I mean, I think, and Brock shared his very good, strong opinion. I think that's what we want all our analysts to do. Tell the truth. What do you see? Tell us what that is. And, a lot of guys are afraid to take a stand and equivocate in that moment, and Brock did not, to his credit. Whatever you think about his opinion, that he should be given a lot of credit for that, because that's what we want from our analysts on television. He really did his job in a big moment. So I give him credit for that. It is hard for both of us, for all of us in those moments. You got to do it. It's the job, but there is so much going on. First of all, we're a million miles from the field. We're watching through monitors and binoculars and our own eyes from far removed. The producer's in our ear. We got replays coming. There's so many things that are going on in that moment, real time, with no safety net. You got to do all this live, and you can't mess it up. And so it becomes a chaotic sequence. And I think the thing that I always regret about those kinds of scenarios is there just isn't enough time to reflect. You have to move on. Okay, so once the call gets made, the BYU then there's a near interception. There's a huge pass where they have to review that. Like, we can't go back and keep dwelling on it. We can't. We have to follow the game forward. So it almost makes it seem like we're dismissive of the importance of that moment. We're not. We just have to keep doing the job and following the game. That's just the way it is. So I think that's part of our challenge in any moment like that when you're broadcasting a game is it's moving fast. You're talking to the producer. How much time's left? What's this? What's the implications of the penalty? We have a rules analyst. Are we bringing him in? All this stuff is going on in a matter of seconds while you're trying to coherently explain to an audience at home what we're seeing. And it makes for a jumbled. It just you got to do the best you can. The call was the correct call. Like there was a hold. The timeout did get signaled for before the play was snapped. Like I just don't think those things are disputable. Now, I guess if you want to argue that, hey, the holding call happened, the guy was getting sacked, it had no impact on the play. If you want to make that argument, you can. The official's job is you're watching the part of the field that's your responsibility, and if you see a penalty, you throw a flag. That's that official's job. The official's job is not to try to measure, well, was that a part of the design of the play? Was the quarterback already in so much trouble that it wasn't going to matter? That is not that official's job. The kid got held. He did. And the penalty was thrown. And the timeout was called for in time. So, I understand the sore feelings of losing that game. And I understand how close it was and what an agonizingly painful defeat that was. But I also don't particularly think you can dispute those two things. I don't.
Yeah, well said. It's pretty clear that there are some people that live in this community that don't necessarily agree with you, Dave, namely the head coach of Utah and the athletic director of the University of Utah, who were very upset after the game. Emotions definitely spill in, but I always like, after the fact to interview the play-by-play guy because you have to hone in on every play. So let me bring in another dynamic just to get your thoughts. A lot of people throughout the course of yesterday and today have brought up the consistency portion of the way the game was officiated. Now, BYU, I'm on a couple of threads. I come from a BYU family. I went to the University of Utah because I chose truth. That's just a line I use. And so I get a lot of BYU interaction, a lot of Utah interaction. My phone was lighting up with BYU fans that were really angry about the officiating in the first half. And then lighting up after the game, Ute fans ready to find out where the officials live. So, there was the phantom face mask call on the Glasgow kid where upon replay it looked like he grabbed him on the shirt. But as far as the holding call, Dave, do you feel like it was consistent with the way that dynamic was officiated all game long?
I probably just don't have a good answer for you. I'm not avoiding it. I mean, I'm willing to share my opinion. I just don't, as a play-by-play guy, it's really hard for me I'm following the ball. And so I just don't feel like I've got a great sense for, on the perimeter, those kind of plays, exactly how the game was officiated. I know a lot of Utah people feel like they were letting players get away with stuff. But I mean, even if they were, I think if you grab a guy's jersey and turn his shoulders, which is what happened. Now, did the kid stumble too? Did that exaggerate the way it looked to the official? Maybe it did, but he grabbed part of his jersey and the shoulders turned. Like, whether you're letting guys get away with stuff or not, it's really hard to ask an official not to throw a flag when he sees that. It just is. So, I don't have a great answer for you on the consistency of the whole game. I thought the game was, all college football and football in general now is just, the over-analysis of officiating. A lot of times officiating is flawed, but we have all these replay reviews, and the game feels so disjointed at times. And the replay reviews, all they do is just emphasize more, like, individual calls. Are they getting it right? Are they getting it wrong? Like, it just fuels this sort of snowball effect of oh my gosh, what a terribly officiated game. And the reality is just every game, there's 100 calls in every game that could go either way. And I don't believe that this one really falls in that category. I think he got held.
So away from the controversial elements of what happened and over to kind of just more of the meat and potatoes of the game, I want to ask you from your vantage point, or maybe Brock had some things to share about what BYU did at halftime as far as adjustments go to really stifle a Utah offense that's been bad all year, but seemed to figure some things out as they put up 21 all in the second quarter, but they could not do anything in the second half. Is that specific to what BYU did at halftime to approach it differently, or did Utah take their foot off the gas? Something was up in the second half. Tell me what you saw.
I do think Jay Hill is really good at that. I think if you watch BYU a lot, he is good at. He kind of lets the game early play out, and sometimes that philosophy can get you in a little bit of trouble. I think the guy with the Chiefs actually does this quite a bit, Spagnuolo, like where he'll let a couple series go where he's not calling a lot of pressures. He's kind of playing it vanilla. And I think his philosophy is, even if I give up some points early in the game, I get a real strong sense of exactly how they're approaching us. And then he's really confident in his ability to make those changes. And I think Jay's like that. I think Jay is very good at midstream changing what they're doing. So, I mean, I'm not going to play analyst and get into like X's and O's technical stuff. I think clearly they change their looks. I think anytime you have a young quarterback who's getting into a little bit of rhythm, and I say he's young, he's not young by age, but by playing experience, you want Jay's point to us going into the game was we got to give him a lot of different looks, make it complicated for him to diagnose at the line of scrimmage. I think they got better at that as the game was going. They got more pressure on him, and a couple of those linebackers. I mean, Kelly had some monster plays. A couple of individual guys just really stepped up and played well. And I think losing Keithy was a big factor. He's just really good, and he made a big impact in the first half, and they missed him when they didn't have him in the second half. So I think it was kind of a combo of all three things.
I'm assuming, as all major broadcasts do, you had the opportunity to meet with both coaching staffs prior to the game, Dave. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's start with the Utah coaches, because as I've been saying, I should say over the past 3 or 4 weeks, I get things wrong a lot. This is a sports talk radio show. You get paid to give opinions. Essentially, they're educated guesses. A lot of them are wrong. I don't know that I've ever been as wrong as I've been about this Utah football team. What are some of the things the coaches shared with you as to why we find ourselves sitting here talking about 5 straight Ute losses?
Yeah, I think it really boils down to him, and I do agree with him. Kyle's got a very typical Utah team except for one aspect of the team, and the total lack of passing attack has torpedoed the season. And I think that's what Kyle believes, and I think he's right in that. The defense, I mean, that Utah defense on Saturday was awesome. The effort level from those front guys, Fillinger was incredible. I thought Lander Barton played the best game I've ever seen him play. He was fantastic. Reed was flying all over the place. Vaughn had some huge plays. Like, that defense play, the 2 defensive tackles. I mean, Tanavasa's got a chance to be one of the best players in the country. He is fantastic. And they just play their tails off. And the defense, by every statistical measure, is elite again this year. Elite, with very little support from the offensive side of the ball. And I think you saw in the first half, with any element of complementary football, even giving up a kickoff return for a touchdown, Utah was in firm control of the game. It's just hard to hold up when one side of the ball, and particularly one half of one side of the ball, just it can't do its job. And I think that's the story of the Utah season, and I think that's how Kyle sees it, and I think he's right.
On the other side, as you referenced earlier, the cross-pollination of these 2 programs is wild. So I've been doing radio in the market for almost 2 decades. So when Kalani Sitake was up here as defensive coordinator, I did a weekly show with him. And Aaron Roderick is actually kind of a lifelong friend. We've known each other since we were young. You referenced Jay Hill, who coached under Kyle, played at the U. Like, it's wild. And, of course, Coach Witt was a great player at Brigham Young. So, I cheer for those guys down there. I like to see Kalani have success, and I hope it leads to the contract that he finally deserves. But on the flip side, what did the coaches from Brigham Young, Dave, share with you about what has been an incredibly unexpected yet magical season?
Yeah, we've done a bunch of their games, so I've gotten to know all these coaches really well over the last few years, and especially this year. Kalani, one thing that Kyle and Kalani both shared with us, which I thought was really cool, was they both had an almost exact, they had not talked all week, rivalry week. They're not going to be, I don't think they're talking a ton anyway, in off season maybe, but they both had almost the exact same recollection of a meeting when Kalani had just joined, like after maybe the first season he was with Kyle, and sort of the end of year, let's decompress and see how things are going. And Kyle basically said to Kalani, you have something special. You can be anything you want in this business. And let's pencil down a roadmap for you and put some goals down of when you're going to become a coordinator and when you're going to have a chance to be a head coach. And basically it sort of played out almost exactly like Kyle laid it out for him. And so I thought that was cool. Like Kyle truly had like an intense mentor relationship with Kalani and helped him get to where he is. So that was a fun part of the prep for this week to have those guys remember those moments together. I think Jay Hill's a fantastic defensive coach, really good. Aaron is, Aaron, like all offensive coaches, when your quarterback's playing better, all of a sudden you look a lot better. and he deserves a lot of credit for helping get Retzloff to the point where he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league after, some struggles last season without a whole lot around him. Kalani is, he's Mr. Positive. I think he really, truly believes the cliche is living out this year of our guys focus 1 week at a time. And it's going to get harder and harder for that team. If they stay undefeated, it's going to be really hard to do. But you can't think about like big picture. You got to just focus. And I think Kalani's really proud of his team for doing that. He loves his group. They've been patient developing players. They haven't just hit the portal or run a bunch of guys out they've been patiently building this team up to this point, and it's paid off, and he's really proud about that.
All right, Dave, before we set you loose, I don't know if you've done any Buffs games this year, but Utah hits the road for a really difficult game, and Dion deserves a lot of credit. Colorado is for real. Do you give the Utes a puncher's chance coming up on Saturday? And did you see enough from Utah to believe that maybe over the final 3 games there are a couple of wins out there so these upperclassmen can go bowling before they get gone?
Yeah, I think they definitely, when you have that defense, you've got a chance. To me, the big question is, can the offense just give them enough support to let the defense win the game, essentially? And I think they can do it. Now, Colorado's super explosive, but Utah up front is a handful. And Colorado's gotten a lot better on the offensive line, a lot better. But when they've failed in the last few years, it's been when they can't protect Shedeur. When he's under extreme duress, Colorado has a hard time functioning. And Utah can do that to them. So that's the formula for the game. You got to go in there, must go in there, and hit him a bunch of times and get in his face almost every time he drops back. And they're capable of it. If those big guys up front can play inspired like they did this last weekend, they can go in there and win. That's a big if, though, because it's just going to be I don't envy the challenge of Kyle and the staff this week. I know they love their players and the players have played hard, but you can understand the disappointment of that loss, and we'll see how much energy and enthusiasm they can carry on the road. That's going to be a massive challenge because, if you give up a couple big plays early and Boulder gets rolling, with the way the season's gone, it's, you can't blame anybody if a player, not a rollover is too strong, but if you lose a little bit of your fight, if you fall down early. So that's how they go in and win the game. Can they do it? They absolutely can.
Dave, thank you, sir. Excellent job on the call. Be well. Have a good week. I'd love to do it again, okay?
And anytime I can come back for that rivalry, sign me up. I would do that game every year. It's a special thing.
Yes, sir. Dave Fleming, college football, baseball, golf too, does a lot of different things for ESPN, calls Giants games, spent a number of years as a sub for the Warriors broadcast. I can remember calling some NBA games as well. Appreciate Dave's time. We're going to keep this conversation going with Kyle Bonagura, who covers college football for ESPN and was in town. He joins us next. But Dr. Angela Peterson is good enough to join us live in studio from Lifestyle Men's Health. Dr. Peterson, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So we have Ken on, your business partner, quite a bit. He's a man in his 60s. We have Ken on quite a bit. He's a man in his 60s, and he talks a lot about how his life has changed as a result of your treatments for erectile dysfunction, which are different than the treatments that have been offered in the market. Let's hear about those.
Absolutely. There just hasn't been anything offered to treat erectile dysfunction that actually works. But we have changed that, and we have real testimonials, we have real evidence, and we are seeing huge changes in our clients, and they're able to resume sexual activity with their partner. So it's very exciting, and it's super important for your relationship. So put the value in that. Come see us and get on your road to really experiencing things that you haven't had in a long time.
Now, the two things you've helped me with, and my personal testimonial after working with you for a year and a half, is as a result of testosterone therapy and vitality peptides. I'm down about 15 pounds. My workouts are so much better. I actually look forward to them instead of dreading them when I wake up. I had a wedding a couple of weeks ago in Park City, and a bunch of friends of mine flew in from out of town, and they all said, "You look different. What are you doing?" Well, those are the two things that I'm doing in my mid-40s that have kind of helped me capture the fountain of youth a little bit with what you like to call biohacking. Let's talk about those two things.
Absolutely. It is biohacking, and testosterone's a problem. Most men are very low in testosterone, and low normal is not optimal. That's what we tell our clients. Normal is not optimal. So if you've had your blood evaluated by your primary care provider and they say you're fine, I would look at that again and come see me, and I can reevaluate it and tell you what is going to be optimal, because replacing testosterone is going to change a lot of things in your life. Like you just said, you get your swagger back, you feel better, you have a better libido, you have better energy, your workouts are amazing, your recovery is even better. And these are all things that can be turned around with testosterone replacement therapy.
What is the special offer you have for listeners who give you a call today?
So we are going to be offering $300 off for testosterone injections with a 6-month commitment. I also really like to do hormone pellets, and those are going to be $100 off. And our signature ED treatment that does work is 50% off still. And then if you do commit to that, we will include testosterone replacement therapy for 6 months if you need it.
It is a great offer. If you've been waiting to call, congrats. You waited long enough. Today's the best deal they've had. So give them a call at Lifestyle Men's Health right now at 385-458-9203. That's 385-458-9203. 385-458-9203, or online at lifestylemensclinic.com. Dr. Peterson, thank you.
Thanks so much.
All right, Kyle Bonagura joins us coming up next right here on ESPN 700. if you were really hungry, how many Uncrustables do you think you could eat in one sitting? If you were really hungry,
Man.
like, do you think you could compete with like competitive eaters on the scale of if they had like an Uncrustable contest?
Well, I was going to say, am I just really hungry or am I competing? Because those are
Both. You're hungry and you're competing. How many can you finish?
oh man, I want to say like 30.
30? There's no way you can finish 30
I would be really sick,
Uncrustables.
but I don't know. I've won a chicken wing eating contest before.
Oh, I did not know that.
You know,
Okay.
but I don't know. A lot.
All right. Smash one during the break. Barely finished it in time to talk to Kyle Bonagura from ESPN, who was in town, question mark, on Saturday. Yes, Kyle, you were here, yeah?
I was. I came in day of, came back yesterday.
I saw you from a distance. I did not want to bother you because you looked very locked into both the game and then I believe you had your laptop open following other games. Is that correct?
That sounds about right. I usually keep an eye on what else is happening during the game. You should have come say hi, though.
I should have. That's my bad. But you looked like you were concentrating. But nonetheless, what a night! Just overall, what was your experience like covering that game at Rice-Eccles Stadium?
Yeah, so I mean, I wrote about the rivalry last week, or like the story ran last week. So I had talked with like a bunch of people, over the 2 weeks leading up to the game, and like one thing that like a few different people told me was the Holy War always delivers, or like never disappoints. That was the sentiment, right? And then I left the game, getting back to the hotel. I'm like, yeah, they were right. Like it wasn't very good football being played out there, but yeah, memorable experience, crazy finish, of course, and certainly I cover so many games, few stand the test of time. Like I'll like absolutely remember being at that game, but that's one that can for sure will remember for a long time.
We've got to start, unfortunately, with the end, and then we'll get to some other dynamics because everybody over the past 24, 48 hours debating the holding call that prolonged the game and allowed Brigham Young another chance, which they took advantage of and drove down to kick that field goal, and they rolled back down to Provo with the dub. But what'd you make of that dynamic where Ute fans thought they won twice, actually? Then they realized BYU called a timeout, and then they thought they won again, and then a flag was thrown. And what did you make of the holding call that everybody's debating around here?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the circumstances of it are going to inform everyone's opinion about whether it should or should not have been called, right? Because if that call was made in the second quarter on, 1st and 6 at the 30-yard line, you wouldn't have thought about it again ever in your life, right? If you look at it slow-mo replay, yeah, it's probably a holding, letter of the law. Like I understand why it was called, but like when the play was over, you thought the game was over. You had thought Utah had won, like. And the fact that it had just happened, 2 minutes earlier with that timeout play, it just makes it such a bizarre scenario where you are celebrating a win for the second time in a couple minutes, and then for this call to breathe new life into the game, of course you're going to be a lot more pissed off than you would have been if the circumstances were different, right? And so it feels like it was taken away, if that's your perspective, but I think the call was right. I just think it's like just difficult circumstances to accept that it was something that could have very easily been good. Like it could have very easily not been noticed either. That's the other thing, right? It's like if it didn't get called, would BYU fans have been clamoring for a hold after the fact? Probably not. It wasn't so obvious that it would have received that sort of attention.
So the only thing missing from Mark Harlan's comments after the game was an audio recording of him asking Brett Yormark to find him 2 points. It was there was a lot of energy there that things were stolen, So of course Mark fined $40,000, also publicly reprimanded, and I still don't know what that means. But he has been publicly reprimanded, Mark. So there you go. But what did you make of what Utah's AD had to say after the game, and of course the reaction that's been widespread over the past couple of days now?
It was just a bizarre moment. You just don't see people react that way. It almost felt like to me that he knew what he was getting into. He's like, how much money am I willing to pay here to express my frustration about this? Like when he sat down at the podium, he knew a fine was coming. He knew what he was going to say. He knew it was going to be harsh, all of that. So it was calculated in that, in that sense, it felt like, but at the same time, like, I don't know what he thinks he was accomplishing by doing it, right? There's plenty of ways you can express your disappointment in a way that doesn't come off as over the top as it did, and just it feels like a kind of a sore loser type situation, right? It's not like the game ended on that play either. Like there's been a few of these plays in college football over the season where it flipped the game. I mean, Miami had two, went for them. I was at the Cal Miami game where like a targeting call was missed, a blatant one, much more blatant than this, where I actually believe the refs got the call wrong and it flipped it. And after the game, you didn't hear Justin Wilcox making a scene about it. You just you can't really impact that stuff. So yeah, it was weird to see, because he's for me, Mark is usually pretty level-headed and kind of rational with that type of just in general as a leader of the athletic department. So for me, it kind of spoke to, look, Utah's on a big losing streak. It's the rivalry. It's the first time in the rivalry in a new conference. There are so many different forces here that are making the stakes so high and tensions high, and I'm sure was already frustrated before that sequence. So it was just weird.
It was weird. It was a weird game. It was a weird night. It was a fun night, though. I mean, I do think college football rivalries are maybe one of the only things about the sport that separates it from others. I mean, there are NFL rivalries. They just don't really feel the way college football rivalries do. I wonder, in your experience covering a bunch of these things, what stands out most to you about this dynamic? What makes it unique? How does it compare to other big rivalries across the country?
I mean, there's a lot to that, right? I mean, I do think, and your kind of audience probably understands this better than I do, but I do think that you have two schools that are relatively close in proximity, right? But then you also have the public versus private. You have a religious school versus a non-religious school. I think that adds to the tension in a way that a lot of the other state rivalries don't have, like Washington State. It doesn't have that same dynamic, right? You don't see that in Oregon, or most of the main rivalries in college football is not set up that way. So I think that's one obvious differentiating factor about it, right? And then from an on-field standpoint, when I was kind of researching the game last couple weeks, there are so many individual moments here that could be the moment, right? This one stands out from the rest of them, but there's just been so many different games over the years where something weird has happened. There's been a memorable finish or an upset or high stakes, results, stuff like that. And it's been very consistent over a long period of time that, I think that adds to it as well. And I think just this new part of it, going from, being in the same conference to leaving, and there being some animosity with that as BYU went into its independent era and Utah was in the Pac-12, getting reunited here. I think there's there's just so many contributing factors that make this one really unique. And I've told myself now that this is a game that I have to watch every year.
So when did you, for me, it was when Retzlaff found Chase Roberts. That's when the pulse started going, man, they might pull this off. When did you get the sense that Brigham Young may actually get this thing done, despite it feeling like it was over a couple of different times?
Yeah, I mean, that was it, right? Because BYU's offense it was terrible the whole game. Retzlaff did not play well. And so even when they got the first down there, they're still deep in their own territory after not being able to move the ball very well all game. So it still felt like a heavy lift to be able to get the ball with a chance to win the game. And then you get the one big chunk play, and it's okay, now you need maybe one more, right? It's one play here and a field goal, and all of a sudden that doesn't seem like an obstacle that would be you can't overcome. So as soon as they're in that range, now you're kind of thinking about, maybe there is something to this game, to this rivalry where weird stuff happens, and you just kind of have to brace for that. And then there's just something about BYU and the, as a team of destiny, right? It's that's not real, but it also, I guess, speaks to just their ability to kind of find ways to win, and they did it against Oklahoma State. They've shown some resiliency there. That's a real characteristic of a team that they're gonna keep going. So I guess that part should be appreciated about them. Look, they're 9-0 doesn't happen on accident.
Tell me what you saw, Kyle, from your vantage point in the second half, where I think Utah had 79 yards and 4 first downs and 0 points. I mean, they hung 21 on BYU in the second quarter altogether, which stunned me, quite frankly, because the offense hasn't really been able to manufacture much. Of course, they lose Brant Keithy, which sucks on a number of levels. But Was it BYU adjustments? Was it Utah taking the foot off the pedal? What happened to Utah's offense in the second half when it just stalled out?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I'm not going to pretend to have any like the X's and O's insight to really like break that down for you. But like I will say that like at halftime, I was talking with John Wilner, who's covered Pac-12 for a long time, and the West Coast for a long time, and we're kind of talking about how look this Rose kid, like how is he not the backup to start the year? Because in the first half, he looked really good. I mean, Utah scored on scored touchdowns on 3 straight drives to end the half. And at that point, BYU couldn't move the ball at all. It just kind of felt like the game was over if things didn't change. And like, look, if Utah had scored on one more opportunity, had kicked a field goal, whatever the game, they would have won the game. So for what changed, I don't know. Was it BYU making adjustments? Was it just like the moment being too big for Utah? Probably a combination of all of those things, right? Maybe it's just the law of averages, like a bad offense, found something that clicked, in the first half, and then it kind of fell back into like what it actually is, you could go with that theory, but either way, Utah's just got to be extremely frustrated. Obviously, Mark's kind of outburst probably illustrated it best.
Yeah, and I wanted to get your take on what could be next because you've also covered Colorado quite a bit during Dion's time. And Coach Prime, I didn't mean to make that rhyme. Wow, that rhymed as well. That's crazy. He has done a really good job and deserves a lot of credit. And they're so much better than I think most people thought they would be. Utah hits the road now for an early kick on Saturday, 10 a.m. Fox has that game, 10 a.m. locally here. And Colorado's a 10-point favorite over the Utes. So what do you make of Utah's chances to go pull off what would be a double-digit upset coming up on Saturday morning?
It's a good question because I still like as good as Colorado's been, and they're incrementally better, like in every way. Almost, I wrote about Colorado last week and kind of looked at the offensive line and looked at the defense, and they're just like they're a lot better on defense. They're a little bit better on the offensive line, but it's like the combination of all those factors. Just another year of being comfortable in Boulder for the coaching staff, right? Like it has kind of got them to this point. They have plenty of easier schedule. The Pac-12 was loaded last year, so there's a lot of things that have kind of worked out for Colorado. Shadur's obviously, an outstanding quarterback, and the offense is, they're hard to slow down. I still think Utah's got a puncher's chance. I mean, with the defense, that's the thing, right? It's like the defense has been good all year. There hasn't, even during this winning streak, that hasn't been a problem. So, like, if you can, if you look at this conference, the worst team can beat the best team. I think that's pretty clear. And so, if you're Utah, you might be frustrated, and Colorado is, clearly the favorite, like the deserved favorite on paper, but this is not a conference where you can kind of assume any result is going to happen. I mean, look at just Utah and BYU last week, right? BYU is supposed to be the best team in the conference. They came within, they lost the game twice before they won. So I would still kind of keep the faith for Utah that they can compete. But at the same time, I certainly expect Colorado to win at home.
On the other side, BYU now has a tremendous opportunity because their margin of error is large to get to Dallas and play in the Big 12 championship. Home against Kansas coming up, then it's at ASU, and then home against Houston. They could lose 2 of the next 3 and probably still make it in. I mean, we're not really sure how it's going to go. But my question is, have they shown enough? Look, they've won all 9 games. They've won all games in conference. They've answered every question. It sounds weird for me to ask you this, but do you firmly believe this is the best team in the Big 12?
I do. I mean, I think look, the standings do tell the story, but I would say they're deservedly the best team in the Big 12. But at the same time, that doesn't mean they're markedly better than anyone else, right? Just top to bottom. I mean, if you pulled the Big 12 standings right now, it would show Utah and Oklahoma State at the very bottom. BYU came within a play of losing to both of those teams, and I don't know what can better illustrate the parity in the conference, right? They've won all the games. Therefore, they are the best team, but that doesn't mean that they should be counting their chickens, right? And they got 3 games left, like you said. That's big in terms of just the buffer they have there. But I think that beyond that, you really kind of hope to win all 3 because then you have a buffer going in. You might have a buffer going into the Big 12 championship game because I think there is a scenario where if BYU is 12-0 going into the Big 12 title game, they could still lose then. and back their way into the playoff. I think that's on the table. It depends on how everything shakes out like elsewhere in the country. But I think that's got to be the aim, to just give yourself the best chances possible heading into the title game.
I want to follow up with that, though, because I honestly, look, I don't know. Okay, I have no idea, but I thought BYU coming in at 9 in the initial CFP rankings was a real indictment on the Big 12 and a statement from the committee that you are a one-bid league, no matter what. I mean, let's discuss this a little bit further before I set you loose. Like, if BYU rolls into Dallas 12-0, and look, there are so many things that we don't know as far as how it's going to play out. So let's acknowledge that out of the gates. But is there a realistic chance that 12-0 Brigham Young, Dallas Big 12 championship game loses to Colorado or whoever? Well, we'll use the Buffs as the example. That's the most likely matchup as of now. And Colorado gets in, and BYU is left out based off of what the CFP committee seems to have told us last week?
Yeah, I mean, so I always say there's nothing guaranteed, so that caveat is absolutely important to this conversation. But, when Kansas State went to the title game 2 years ago, they lost the Big 12 title game, right? So and the conference wasn't like it was that much better 2 years ago. I mean, it was better, but it wasn't so good that it was like for sure that they were going to get in, right? So there is some precedent for the loser of the Big 12 title game to get in, and beyond that, just like there's 7 at-large spots. So there are spots there for losers of the conference title games. If it really comes down to the SEC and like how many 2-loss teams you have versus 3-loss teams, because I think if BYU is 12-1 and it's between them and some of the 2-loss SEC schools, then it gets tough. But if the SEC finishes with only 3 2-loss teams, and then it's 12-1 BYU versus a 3-loss SEC team, that's where I think that the possibility becomes more likely. And also like how far they move up between now and the end. Because look, if they were 9 now, look, Miami lost, they'll probably bump up to 8. Maybe there's something else in there that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. Georgia lost as well, so maybe they're at 7 just to top it off. We'll find out tomorrow how this will play out, right? But if you can climb up to like 5, 4, 4, 5 by the time the title game rolls around, that means you're going to have to drop like 8 spots by losing to one team on the last day of the year. Yeah. I think you'd have a chance. Again, like not guaranteed, but I think you should play for play with the assumption that possibility is around, I guess.
Kyle, thanks for the time, man. Have a great week, and we'll chat soon, okay?
Sounds good. See ya.
Kyle Bonagura at Bonagura ESPN is where you find him. A bunch of rivalry content that Kyle wrote for the .com side of ESPN as he was in town. Appreciate his time. I want to tell you about Diamond Coat. Diamond Coat Premium Home Siding. They're new here along the Wasatch Front. You won't believe what they can do to your home's exterior. Diamond Coat Siding, next generation system, delivers the exterior transformation you deserve. To level up to the neighborhood standard, they're the total design solution that shows your personal style with endless styles and colors for limitless customization. And their 30-year no-fade warranty means your vision will last for decades to come. Designed beyond limits, beyond expectations with Diamond Coat, now available in the Salt Lake City area. Premium home siding, limitless potential, endless styles and colors. They're your total design solution. It's year-round, weather-ready, durable in all seasons, which, of course, is important in Utah. Discover more at diamondcoatsiding.com. That's Diamond Coat, spelled K-O-T-E, siding.com. Joining me now live in studio, which I always prefer as opposed to over the phone because I miss her. It's Dr. Angela Peterson. On a Monday, Dr. Peterson, happy Monday. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Beautiful day outside.
It really
so you
is.
got to love that. For about a year and a half now, since we met, you said something that has reverberated throughout my brain, which was you don't know how bad you're feeling until you actually start to feel better. And I really didn't know what that meant until I started to feel better. And what helped me feel better is what you refer to as biohacking, and the 2 elements that have helped me really improve my sleep, my focus, my workouts, and I feel like I look good, and a lot of it's because of what you've done with the vitality peptides and the testosterone therapy. So how can you help our listeners that are looking to kind of recapture their youth a little bit?
Absolutely. Well, it is biohacking, and the things that have changed for you is getting your testosterone at an optimal level and doing peptides that have also helped with your growth hormone release, which is super important as we age because growth hormone falls off as you get older. So replacing those things through hormone replacement therapy is very important. You can get your swagger back. You can get a higher libido. You can have more energy. And it's really health protective as well for future concerns and avoiding chronic illness.
So a lot of the testimonials that you guys have over Lifestyle Men's Health are from men that have thanked you for saving their marriage. I mean,
Correct.
relationships when there's no physical intimacy. I mean, what are we doing? You're roommates, right?
Right.
So erectile dysfunction, it's not just what it does to you, it's what it does to your wife, your relationship, and potentially your family. Your treatment works. Breaking news.
Breaking news.
Yeah, what is it? Let's hear about it.
Well, we're using stem cell therapy to help to repair and regrow vascular tissue for men so they can establish an erection. If you're not having intimacy with your wife, you're right. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you satisfied with that? It hurts relationships. And when you don't have that connection at that intimate level, that's really a problem for a lot of people. And a lot of women are very emotional about it. They think it's their problem. They did something, and that's not really true. So we're here to help, and we're here to help repair your relationship and repair your life, because when you're on all cylinders and have that connection, life is just a lot better.
All right, what's the special offer you have for our listeners who give you a call today?
Our signature erectile dysfunction treatment is still 50% off, and we are also including free testosterone replacement therapy for 6 months, but that is with the ED treatment. We also have deals on testosterone. It is $300 off for the injections for a 6-month commitment. And then I love doing pellets, and then those are going to be $100 off as well.
Great offers, save money, and I can give you the personal testimonial that if you're a man in your mid-40s, the vitality peptides and the testosterone therapy can really help you out in a lot of different ways. Here's the number. Call today. 385-458-9203. That's 385-458-9203, 385-458-9203. Or online at lifestylemensclinic.com. Dr. Peterson, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, coming up next, as we are wont to do every Monday throughout the college football season, if you miss Coach Witt from earlier, his media availability, you can hear it in his voice, man. That's a rough weekend for a coach on the losing side of a big game like that. So if you missed it, we're going to play it coming up next right here on ESPN 700. All right, during the 4 o'clock hour of the show today, we're going to bring in Scott Mitchell and Andy Larson from the Tribune. Continue to talk about the chaos that ensued on Saturday night, reflect on what happened in the rivalry game, and discuss, as far as what's next for both these teams. Everything on the table for BYU, and a large margin of error as a result of the rest of the conference just kind of stubbing their toe every weekend. BYU could essentially lose 2 of their final 3 games and probably still go to Dallas. It depends on what happens around them. They're going to have Kansas coming up. Excuse me, another late kick, this one at Lavelle Edwards Stadium on Saturday. Kansas has played a little bit better over the past few weeks. BYU is only a slight favorite at home, only a 3-point favorite at home, last check. And 3 points. That's the spread as of now. BYU is a slight favorite. Over-under is 55.5. For Utah, I think it was 40.5. So Vegas expecting a high-scoring football game. Utah takes their act on the road to Boulder, coming up for an early kick. That's 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And as of now, Colorado is a 10-point favorite over the Utes. 10 a.m. kick time. What does that mean for your Saturday morning?
It'll be an early one.
6 a.m.?
Yes. Bright and early.
Do you have the ability to get yourself out of bed at that hour, young man?
I might, depending on.
Don't say you're just not going to go to sleep.
Well, no, I'll just do it from home. I'll just do the show from bed. Is that doable?
Do we have an available Comrex for you to do? So, are you saying at 6 a.m. Ute fans going to turn on their radio and you're going to be in your skivvies in bed?
I don't really see why that's an issue if we're not, we're just on radio. It's 6 a.m. Why should I be on site somewhere?
Because it's your job, Porter. Because we show up to work. That's what we do at ESPN 700.
Yeah, but again,
part of the Utah ESPN radio network.
There you go.
Huh?
There you go. I'm not sure. I think Jordan Wynn's going to be joining me, so we'll probably just hang out in studio with some coffee.
I imagine you're going to have a tough time locking in a co-host for Saturday when you tell them that, hey, we start at 6 a.m.
I know.
How was the coat drive?
It was good, actually. We filled up a box truck with coats for Utah foster care.
Good.
Hung out with Nate Orchard, Isaac Asiata, Steve Vincent Sylvester, Steve Savoy stopped by. We got a bunch of former Utes, some former Cougars to stop by, and it was really successful as far as the coat drive goes, and it was a fun time talking some football too.
There you go. All right, as we are wont to do, Mondays during the college football season, unless there's a bye week, Kyle Whittingham addresses the media, and in the afternoon drive space, in case you're busy this morning, we like to play it back. So here, on a Monday, is the head coach of the University of Utah, Kyle Whittingham.
It's a tough rivalry game. Every time we play it, it's a battle, and seems to come down to last possession or set of possessions, and so we just got to move on. Now we're up to Colorado, or on to Colorado. Arguably have one of the best players in college football, maybe the best in the Hunter kid. He's tremendous. Quarterback's outstanding, and they're playing really good football. 7-2, early loss to Nebraska, and then close loss to K-State. Otherwise, they're playing outstanding. Road trip, so we got to go to their place, and they're well coached. In addition, Coach Sanders is doing a great job, and his staff, and have made a lot of adjustments and improvements over last year. Much better at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. So got our work cut out for us. So questions.
After looking at the tape, maybe what changed in that second half that allowed the offense maybe not to get as much as the first?
We just didn't execute as well. The play calling was fairly similar as far as the ratio run to pass. Maybe a little more run heavy than in the first half, but just didn't quite have the execution that we had in the first half. Didn't make the plays that we made in the first half, and so that was the difference offensively.
What did you make of the difference Brandon Rose provided to the offense?
Thought he provided a spark and actually played pretty darn good. The one interception he had in the second half was not his error. It was a route structure error. Had one of the receivers run the wrong or the incorrect route, and so I thought that Brandon, for his first collegiate start and first opportunity. That did a really nice job, and he did some, like I said, did some good things.
The tight end room was advertised as very deep and Kiki is out.
Yeah.
How do you see the workload being spread in that room? Who's up next, or which combination of players?
Yeah. Well, Carson Ryan is a player that is right up there towards the top, and of course Bentley's been seeing plenty of time all season long. Landon King becomes more of a factor for us, as hopefully does our big tight end Caleb Lohner. Let's see who's left. There's one more guy left in there. We got 5 of them left. Whom I miss, Suga Taranga. Suga Taranga has had his role all season long, not as much as last year, and it's a little bit diminished since the beginning of the year. But he's another guy that will be in the mix. So we still have plenty of depth and plenty of bodies in that room, and guys that can get it done. But we'll miss Brant. I mean, it rips your heart out to see that happen to Brant, and it looks at least at this time pretty extensive, and certainly season ending from what we understand. And so we thoughts and prayers extended to Brant and his family.
We've asked the quarterbacks to do a couple of difficult things this year. Obviously, first-year freshman Isaac Wilson has to start, and then you get Brandon Rose his first start in a rivalry game against the top-ranked team and all that stuff. How do you get to a point where you're not having these kids be in these difficult positions because it's hard for them to do it? You know what I mean?
Keep our starter healthy. Keep Cam healthy, and that's that was the objective. Not the objective, but the plan. And we didn't expect either Brandon or Isaac to be thrust into the position they've been in, but that's just how things have played out. And again, I thought Brandon, given the environment and the circumstances and everything he was up against, did an admirable job.
Kyle, Micah Pittman wasn't with the team on Saturday.
Yeah, he's chosen to pursue other opportunities, and I'm not sure. I guess there's maybe a little bit of question whether he has a year of eligibility left or not. I'm not real versed in that right now, or maybe try to go to the National Football League. But he has chosen to. And this was about middle of the week last week when that happened. So to move on. Sure.
Kyle, there's obviously frustration at the end of the game based on how it ended. After looking back at it, has your opinion changed on maybe those plays or kind of how everything shook out?
No, I thought Zemiah Vaughn played an exceptional football game and wouldn't have coached him any differently on in any of the circumstances. And he among others played exceptionally well, and it's just unfortunate that we weren't able to get the victory.
Obviously, it was such an emotional game on Saturday. How do you kind of regroup and turn the page?
Yeah, that's tough, and that's a challenge for us, without a doubt. It's a good point that you make, and poured everything we had into that game, obviously, as we do every week. But that game takes a little more of an emotional toll, and we need to come back just like we do every Monday. Win or lose, you come back and get ready for the next guys, and you have to move on. You have to put things behind you, win or lose. And so that's our challenge right now is to regroup as a coaching staff, regroup as a football team, and be prepared to play these last 3 games. And that's the nature of the game.
Kyle, you've been pretty outspoken about you wanting, a league-wide structure for how conferences operate. You just want it under one entity. Moving from the Pac-12 to the Big 12, what has been the biggest change in officiating since you guys have gotten to this new conference?
Yeah, there's quite a few changes. I mean, a lot less. They let you play more in the secondary typically most of the time, and contact and things that we are used to having penalties called for, either for us or against us. In the other league is more allowable, I guess you could say, in this league. Also, like on your return units, punt return, kickoff return, you can be a lot more aggressive with your blocking and your holdups, and it's just a lot more physicality to it that lets, or maybe not physicality, but contact and things that of that nature that happen don't get called nearly as much as in the previous league.
I know you have numbers available on that sense. Do you have that statistic, like penalties called and that sort of thing?
Yeah, the Pac-12 typically was the most officious, I think that's a word, officious conference in the country, and Big 12 I think is somewhere more in the middle. And so yeah, there is statistical data that says that the Pac-12 was very officious. Makes me sound smarter. Yeah. Or really stupid. Yeah.
Kyle, you got a 10 a.m. game. Can you just kind of give us a schedule as far as like when you wake up players, when do they leave, when you leave for the stadium? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's early, and to me, early is great. You know that. I've spoken my mind on that on many occasions. But typically, there's a little bit differing schools of thought on the pregame meal. You eat 4 hours before the game. So I would say the earliest that people will eat before a game is 4, maybe 4:15, 4 hours and 15 minutes prior to the game, and the latest is about 3 hours prior to the game. We lean more towards the 3-hour mark, so we'll have pregame meal right around 7 a.m. Get them up at 6:30 and have pregame meal at 7. It's about a 20-25 minute shot to the stadium, I believe. So we'll leave. We typically try to arrive to the stadium about 2 hours and 10 minutes prior, so that'll put us leaving to the stadium about 7:30ish. And so it's get up, it's eat the pregame meal, it's get on the bus and go. It comes quick, and we typically have some meetings and some things we do on game day when it's a later kickoff that we don't do that day. We push them to Friday night and get those meetings done Friday night.
The Colorado offense looks like it's still pretty heavy on quick throws, perimeter to really talented skill players, and not just one, several of them.
Right.
Is that really what it is, and what kind of pressure does that put on your defense? It's one-dimensional on the one hand, it seems like, but on the other hand, it's really good at that dimension.
Yeah, they're running the ball a little more efficiently and with a little more frequency than last year. About 80 yards a game. I can't remember the exact stat last year, but I don't think it was that much. It was more 50, 60 yards a game, and they're getting about 400 overall, and about 230 whatever throwing the football, or 330, not 230, 330 throwing the football. But yeah, the quarterback has a quick release. He's a terrific quarterback. He'll be one of the most likely the top players taken in the draft next year. And as you mentioned, not just Hunter outside. They got 3 or 4 guys they can get the ball to. And so that's a big part of what they do, is getting the ball, speed and space is what we call it, getting the ball into the hands of the playmakers in space and letting them do their thing.
Kyle, the transfer portal window opens up in about 3 to 4 weeks. I don't know the exact timetable, but given the way your guys' season has gone, when do you start balancing, I guess, finishing out the season strong, but also looking at, what might happen next with the roster, the type of conversations you might be having with players?
Yeah, well, you have those, that strategy and that mindset, regardless of how you're doing. I mean, we're already, recruiting never ends. We're constantly watching other teams and lower level football, FCS, and looking to see what players are really standing out and flashing. And so that's an ongoing process, and regardless of where you are in the standings or whatever, that's something that you look at, and we don't think this year will be any different. And again, last year we had 45 new faces overall. Now that's scholarship and walk-on, and so that number will probably be easily that this year. There's a lot of turnover from year to year, and that's not just us. That's most schools.
PFF graded Smith as the best player in coverage for you guys on Saturday. Can you speak to his play on Saturday, especially with it being his first rivalry game?
Yeah, Smith did an outstanding job and really did a nice job on the kickoff return opportunity that he had, and he's going to stay back there as the kickoff returner. You will see him continue to fill that role, but Smith Snowden is a really good football player, playing that nickel position or the slot corner, which is one of the most, if not the most difficult positions on the defensive side of the ball. We ask a lot of that guy. The coverage in there is tougher than on the outside. You don't have the sideline to protect you, and you also are asked to do some things in the run game, run fits and blitzing off the edge. So you got to have a real versatile guy there, and Smith is exactly what you look for. He's just a sophomore, and he's really doing a nice job for us. I didn't realize he was the highest-rated player, but that's good for him.
Mark Harlan was publicly reprimanded this weekend for his actions after the game. Do you have any thoughts or comments on that whole situation?
No, I'll just say that everyone's emotions were running high after the game. It was an intense battle, and the way it ended was got people excited as well. And so it's just one of those things that when you're in the moment, sometimes you say or do things that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise, me included.
Obviously, like I said, the transfer portal opens up in about 3 to 4 weeks. Have you gotten any word from Cam on what he's thinking in terms of potentially coming back, and what timetable would you place on that, if any?
Okay, no definitive word yet. Cam is still mulling over his options. He just had a surgery on Wednesday of this past week, so that was first and foremost on his mind, is getting that surgery completed. And now he'll have time to, now that that's done, the next big thing is making that decision on which direction he wants to go, and expect to have those conversations with Cam starting up probably as early as this week, seeing where he's at. Oh, Justin, you never asked your question. Let's go, dude.
Hi.
Sorry I missed you. Okay.
After the debacle of last Saturday.
Debacle, okay.
As a whole program, how are you planning to get
Vicious and debacle.
refocused to get ready to play in Colorado, and who also has a shot to play?
Yeah, you got to refocus quick, just like everybody in the country. You play on Saturday and you mull things over and evaluate and do all that stuff on Sunday, and then on Monday you come in and you get going on the next guys. And so no different this week, other than, like I mentioned, the rivalry game has a heavier emotional toll than the other games, and it's not quite as easy to shift gears after that game, but you have to. I mean, it's I've talked about it earlier in the year, not letting one defeat or an incident affect the next one. You can't do that. You gotta try to flush it and get on to the next opponent.
Question. In the aftermath of the game, there was a lot going on. Players showed leadership. There was a video of Landon King picking up trash and that sort of stuff that was going on in the field. Just more looking for your thoughts on your players and their leadership in that moment and moving forward.
Love our guys. Love our players. Love coaching this team. We've got a lot of high-character players on this football team, and they've just continued to battle every week. It's been one of the most frustrating season of my career, and to see how they've handled themselves and continue to compete and fight has been awesome to see that happen. The year hasn't turned out anything like we hoped it would, or we're expecting, but they've continued to stay in the fight and continue to work hard in practice. As I said last week, we have not had a bad week of practice, very few even bad days of practice this whole season, and so that's been a positive. And I'd like to give a shout out to our fans too. The fans were awesome on Saturday night, and what a home field environment and advantage, and it was great to see the passion and the energy, and feel the passion and the energy in that stadium, so we appreciate that. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Okay.
All right, there you go, Coach Witt. If you just hopped in your car, may have missed some of that, check out the website, ESPN700sports.com. Scott Mitchell is going to join us coming up next, talk more Utah, BYU. We're going to bring in Andy Larson because there's an NBA season going on. The Jazz are playing basketball, and they actually won a couple of games last week, so we'll bring in Andy today. But live in studio once again, Dr. Angela Peterson from Lifestyle Men's Health. Dr. Peterson, happy Monday. Let's turn her microphone on. Let's try that again. Happy Monday, Dr. Peterson. How are you?
Happy Monday. How are you?
I'm good. So for about a year and a half, you have been able to assist me with testosterone replacement therapy and vitality peptides. And as I say every time you hop on, if you're a man around my age, mid-40s or so, and if you're looking to get motivated to get back in the gym or get in shape and just ultimately feel better and younger, I can personally tell you that it's done that for me over the past year and a half. What, generally speaking, in age ranges do you usually like to help out?
That's a really good question, Spence. It really depends. I have clients in their 20s that have very low testosterone levels, and they don't feel good, so they've gotten on testosterone replacement therapy, and it's just a real game changer for so many guys. If you've gone and gotten your levels checked by your doctor, and they tell you it's normal. Normal is not optimal. We can make you optimal. We can optimize your health, and you're going to feel amazing. You're going to get that swagger back. You're going to have a better libido. You're going to have better energy. It's just all around super important because testosterone affects every part of your body.
What's the process? Let's just people that are curious about what happens when they give you a call. Like, how does this all go down? What do you do to help them out?
It's super easy, and we've even streamlined things much better than we have before. We have a mobile lab company that can go to your home or office. Once we get the results, we can, evaluate that, and then you can decide if you want to do injections or pellets, and we can really get you going very, very quickly.
Now, erectile dysfunction, of course, is a situation that can cause chaos in your life. As we've talked about, a lot of the people you work with thank you for literally saving their marriage and their relationship. So if you're in a situation where there's no intimacy and you're essentially roommates, you're not doing anything all that exciting. How can you help people that are struggling with ED and ultimately having chaos in their relationship?
Yeah, it's a huge problem, and I just feel so bad for some of these couples that don't want to do anything about it. You don't have to live like this, and our treatments actually work, and we will stand by that. I have talked to countless clients that have had positive reviews and have had a positive experience, and they've been able to, I'm going to say the word, get an erection for the first time in their life, and in the last 5 years, and they're able to have relations with their partner, and it just brings like some joy back to your life, and it's something that you need in your relationship.
All right, what's the special offer you have for our listeners to give you a call today?
We are offering our signature ED treatment with stem cells at 50% off. And then with that, if you do need testosterone, which most likely you will, we will include 6 months free, and you can choose whether you want to do injections or pellets.
It's a great offer today. Give them a call if you've been waiting. Today's the day, 385-458-9203. That's 385-458-9203, 385-458-9203, or online at lifestylemensclinic.com. Dr. Peterson, thank you.
Thank you so much, Spence.
All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Scott Mitchell is our guest coming up next right here on ESPN 700. This is NBA basketball. It's fantastic. Let's continue to talk. We'll talk to you on Monday after the rivalry. Reaction Monday. Scott Mitchell on a Monday afternoon. Scotty, happy Monday. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Let's start. Let's start right away with the thing. Let's do the thing. Holding call at the end of the game. You played QB at the highest of levels, man. Tell me what you saw. Ute fans up in arms. BYU fans say nothing to see here. What does Scott Mitchell say?
Well, if you look at the play, and I've seen 10,000 different angles of it, and there was a hold there, and it's like, okay, fine. There's always holding. There's always something that goes on. Pass interference, holding between DBs and wide receivers it's a nuanced art, to really say it's a basically, do you impede someone's forward progress? And so you look at it from the surface, say, okay, well, fine, it's a hold, whatever. But the thing that's challenging for me is the officials set a tone, and they set the tone all year. This is how we're going to let you play as a defensive back. These officials come to practices in the fall. They have discussions with coaches. They watch the players. I mean, there's a lot of time, a lot of communication back and forth about what you can get away with and what you can't. And the officials clearly all year have basically said, we're going to let them play. We're going to let them play. So you in your mind as a DB, coaches this way. Everyone knows it's gonna. You can get physical. You can get close to each other, and it's been consistent. That's what I've loved about it all year, because I've loved. Okay, you may not agree with the way they're calling it, but at least they're calling it the same way, and that was the challenge for me, because in that moment, on that play, in that situation, now you're going to call this. That was a little challenging. But the other side of it for me, Spence, is, it's too big to rig. The kind of the slogan from the election. Win by so much, you don't have to worry about late game calls like this. Constantly, every week, week in and week out, putting your defense in the pressure situation to be perfect, I think is hard, because something like this is going to happen. One guy somewhere makes one mistake, and you lose the football game. So, to me, it's like you need to score more points on offense. You have the ball on the 50-yard line twice, and you punt from your 50. That's egregious. And the offense was actually moving. Brandon Rose played very well. He played very well in this game. And to not score points, to not even have an opportunity to kick, at least attempt a couple of field goals in those drives, that's the problem. And so you can't just blame it on that last play and as a tough thing. It is a brutally hard pill, though, to swallow when you think you've won the game. And I believe I know it. I've hated officials sometimes. I've been so mad at them. I get it, but you just have to. It's more than that play. I think that was the outcome of the game.
Certainly, and we'll get to all that, but you referenced a little bit of an election slogan, and while we're in that space, after the game, Utah's athletic director, Mark Harlan, had a little Stop the Steal energy, where he said, quote, "I've been an athletic director for 12 years. This game was absolutely stolen from us. We were excited about being in the Big 12, but tonight I am not. We won this game. Someone else stole it from us. I'm very disappointed. I will talk to the commissioner. This is not fair to our team. I'm disgusted by the professionalism of the officiating crew tonight." Well, apparently he did talk to the commissioner and went like this: "You owe me $40,000 and you have been publicly reprimanded." So your reaction to what is going to be known 20 years from now is the Mark Harlan moment in this rivalry.
Well, it's too soon to say this will be a historic moment, because we're all still kind of reeling from it. But it will. Down the road, people will go, remember the year that Mark Harlan just kind of lost his marbles and went off on things? And it reminds me a little bit of, that social media post that you write at 3 o'clock in the morning, or that text message you write, and you kind of have to ask yourself, should I hit send right now?
And the answer is always no, by the way. The answer is always no.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. You should never say it. And he just said, forget that. I'm sending this out. I'm hitting send. It's never a good thing. There's no good optics to it. Just none of it. It doesn't look good for him. Mark's such a great AD and has done a tremendous job at Utah and has been incredible about brand, creating a brand, protecting a brand, building a brand, and that's a tough one on the brand when you do that. Really, really out of character for him. Believe me, I know how it feels. We're all emotional after the game. When I coached, I was like, I coached high school football, and I told the parents, I'll talk to you any day of the week, just not right after a game, because we're both going to say things that we'll regret later. It's always the case. We as media, we want to get the reaction in the moment, but do we really? And because when you do get the reaction, it's maybe it's not what you really wanted, and I feel really bad for Mark. The public reprimand kind of puts you on notice. It's not just a meaningless thing. It's like any kind of thing like this happens again, you're in really, you could be in some significant hot water. So it's not just, that wasn't a good thing. There's repercussions to that. Biggest fine ever in the Big 12 in this situation. So they made a statement, and I'm sure Mark, regrets it. Maybe not in the moment. I mean, I've been there. I know I've said things in the heat of the moment after a game, and in the moment you just go, I don't care. At this moment, like I don't care, but tomorrow I probably will, and it's unfortunate that actually came out.
And I want to underscore your point. I don't know this for sure. We have reached out to the U to try to get Mark on the show this week. Hopefully he'll come in studio to try to kind of explain his side. If I had to guess, I think he would like a mulligan. I think he, I'm not sure he's going to be like defiant when it comes to just reacting with emotion in the moment. How do you, as somebody, as you just said, somebody like you who has been in this scenario, how do you separate your emotion in the moment to react appropriately? Because I think everybody was feeling I watched the game on the sidelines with Sean, and Porter was there, a bunch of ex-U players as well. And when that kick went through the uprights, you could feel the holy bleep just on the sideline in the stadium. Yeah. So unfortunately, Scott, as you know, if you react simply out of emotion in the moment, you do things like, and I've done it so many times, I am not judging. I've woken up before, looked at my Twitter. I'm like, dude, just freaking go to bed next time. But, I mean, ultimately, if you react with emotion, you throw water bottles on the field as fans. You throw chairs in press conferences as coaches, and you say things that you need to walk back quickly if you're an AD. Since you've been in that situation, how do you separate it in the moment? Seems like it's pretty tough.
The best thing in the world, it's brutally tough. I mean, and sometimes you do it right and sometimes you don't. And a lot of it is if you're trained at it and you practice it all the time and you realize, let's have this discussion tomorrow or the next day or whatever, you're always better off. But I know the moments where I just hit the send button and you just it's hard to describe other than you've just walked over the cliff. You're just like, I don't care what the repercussions of this, I don't care. And you just do it. And it never turns out good. It never does, but you nonetheless still feel like in that moment you have to do it. A lot of people, you take Charles Barkley, right? I think Charles got away with it and still gets away with it now because he's just done it forever. Like he just doesn't care what people think. It's like, fine, find me. I don't care. And some people are really okay with it. Some people, just they live on that, where they can just kind of say and do and be what they want. And of course the media loves that and it's great, wonderful. And there are other people, most people just, they just try to be professional, try to, just handle the situation. And quite frankly, for me, that's more of how I was. It was like, I have an obligation, a responsibility to talk to people. So I will talk to them in a civil tone, and then I'll go handle the emotional side of this in a different way and deal with it. Because you have to still deal with it. You put your heart and soul into something. This team has had a brutally tough year, like just a crushing season with all the expectations and really the rightful expectations. A very good football team, and to have the kind of year that they've had, after a while, it just wears on you. You spend so much time every week, the grind of the practice and the meetings and your body being beat up, and then to just pour your heart and soul on the field. Really emotional game, massive, crazy energy on the field, and then to have it end like that is just so crushing, and to feel like it's the judgment of another person that determines that. It's not necessarily the play on the field. That's at least what you feel, when an official makes a call, and you're like, well, there's no repercussion for him. He goes home to his house. He still gets paid. He goes on, and so that's the challenge you have as a player, and the frustration you get kind of with officials, with things that don't seem right or seem fair, and there are just times when you just lose it. You just do.
So I've never been although I'm not a fan of officials, I'm very intrigued at sort of what sort of human would want to do that in life. I think that's fascinating because you're just so disliked. No matter what you do, one fan base is going to be mad at you on one hand or the other. I've never been I'm not here for the blame the officials for the loss thing. I don't like unwritten rules, like a guy dunks a ball when you're already up 20 don't let him dunk it. Like, if you don't want them to win, get in the way and do what you have to do if you're playing the sport. So I'm not a blame the officials guy. It certainly is a fascinating dynamic to discuss, and your perspective is always valuable. But away from the holding call, away from the second, third chance, Kalani did get the timeout on time. I mean, if you see the replay, he did. But it was another, kind of reminiscent of the missed field goals. Ute fans thinking that they're winning and they're not. They're winning and they're not, and then they didn't. So away from that, though, Scott, from a 30,000-foot view, why did Utah lose this football game?
Oh, boy. Well, here's the thing. In this conference, the talent is just really razor thin. Like you could take all the teams right now that are in the bottom of the Big 12, and by the grace of God, they could be in the top, and you could switch it around. I mean, you could go through games that just broke a certain way for a certain team differently, and so the margins are thin. So you got to have a quarterback that plays very well. You have to have the guys healthy, and you can't get banged up, and you got to have the right schedule. You got to have all these things kind of play in your favor, and Utah's just they've had a lot of bounces not go their way. In this game, so it's a very evenly matched game, and you have a BYU team who literally has to play almost perfect in the second half in order to win. I mean, so many things had to fall right and to fall their way in order for them to win. The pass that Chase Roberts catches at the end of the game, it wasn't thrown to him. It was thrown to another guy, and he just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And it's about taking advantage of opportunities when you have them there, and that's what Utah's not done very well. Calhoun has an interception that's probably a pick six, and he drops it. And you got to make that play. That's not a play that's like, oh, well, he got his hand. No, he should have intercepted that ball, and that's a missed opportunity. There's tons of missed. The play calling when they got to the 50-yard line. It's about protecting the lead in that situation. Like, you got the ball at the 50-yard line. You have to get points out of this, no matter what. You fight your life off just to get to the 50-yard line in normal situations. When you start there, so the play calling kind of bogged down a little bit. But it was really about when the opportunities were there, and it's across the board. It's not offense, not defense, it's the whole team. Utah just hasn't been able to make plays to finish out games, and that's really what happened in this game last week. There were tons of opportunities that had Utah taken care of it or taken advantage of it, they would have easily won this game.
All right. Obviously, you're the guy we talked to about the quarterback play. Tell me what you saw, the good and the bad from Brandon, and then also interested in your thoughts when it comes to just why the offense stalled in the second half. I think it was 79 yards and 4 first downs after putting up 21 in one quarter. I mean, this is a offense that couldn't move the ball. They haven't scored 24 or more against a P4 team all year. They hang 21 in the second. Then they go dormant in the second half. So give me your thoughts on Brandon and also your thoughts on why the offense stalled out.
Well, this is Brandon Rose's first start in college football in a rivalry game, heated, massive environment, and he was up to the challenge from the get-go. I mean, immediately you could see the accuracy of the throws and the command and the wanting to be there. I mean, he throws a touchdown to Keithy, and I don't think his feet touched the ground when he went off the field. He was so pumped up. He was just, and you love that passion, you love that excitement, and he again, it was just an extension of what I saw before. Very decisive, very comfortable, whether he was running or throwing. The decisions were there. Threw the ball extremely accurate. Threw the ball down the field very well. Even the interception, Coach Whittingham mentioned in his press conference that the tight end went the wrong way on the route. And that would have been a completion. I mean, he threw it in the right spot, so it wasn't like, oh, that was a bad decision, a bad throw. It was just a tight end kind of hung him out to dry. I was even more impressed with Brandon Rose than I was 2 weeks ago against Houston. I mean, this guy can play, and it's good to see that he's having the opportunity. Now, why did the offense bog down? A lot of it is just teams make adjustments, right? So BYU, you move the ball on them. They can't just sit there and go, yeah, we'll just stay doing the same thing we're doing and let you march down the field. And so they make adjustments, and the adjustments were kind of some of their stunts up front, and what it forced Utah into these third and long, second and long situations, and I really think Utah got really conservative on its play calling in the second half, where they hadn't been, before, and BYU made an adjustment, and Utah didn't really adjust well to that adjustment. So they had these third downs, and they got super conservative, and maybe that's Coach Whittingham saying, hey, I don't want you to try to go for it here. I don't want you to, get too aggressive on these third and longs. Let's just punt the ball. And they did, and they backed up BYU, and other than, it looked like they had them for the most part when they had them backed up, and they had the one long touchdown drive, and it was really when Utah kind of went back into a zone and played soft, and when they pressed the receivers and they pressured the quarterback, that's when the defense really got after. But just got a little conservative. You kind of get into a mindset of, well, let's play not to lose as opposed to playing to win, and I'm more of a let's be more aggressive. Let's, when you got the ball at the 50-yard line, I mean, you got to get points. I don't care what you say, you have got to get points, whether it's field goals, touchdowns, and Utah gets, anything, a field goal, they still win the game.
Yeah, that's all they needed. That's all it needed. I wonder, did it feel to you like it was Stanley from The Office, this is just a run the clock out situation? It felt like they were just trying to kill the clock, play field position. I don't know if that's play calling. I don't know if that's Mike Bajakian. I don't know if that's Kyle Whittingham. But there were so many second-half drives, and definitely in the fourth quarter, where it just felt like they were just trying to kill the clock, play field position, and then instead of playing to win, playing not to lose, like the old cliche goes. Is that a fair assessment of what you saw?
Oh yeah. Well, it felt like it, at least. I don't most. Not at the very beginning of the second half.
Sure, yeah.
When they started winning the field position battle and they started getting these really good field positions, yeah, it did feel like that. But when going back to how the talent is so equal, that makes every possession. It makes everything you do so much more magnified. Like you have to take advantage of the opportunities you have in every game and everything that's going on, because you can't afford. You're not that good. No one is that you can just, well, okay, hey, we'll punt it right here, no big deal. It's like no, you have to. There has to be a sense of urgency, a sense of attention to detail, a sense of like you can never not focus. And when you're a defense like Utah has, there's been some lapses that have caused big plays, and it's maybe a guy got a little lazy or lost focus somewhere, and then those big plays kind of happen, and you can't afford to ever let down. And I think there's been a little bit of that with this team. There hasn't been quite that intense focus and that that a realization that every play matters and to have that urgency of everything, when you play on every snap.
All right, Scott, before I set you loose, we'll finish on this. It's a simple yet complex question because BYU has answered every question that's been asked of them. And you are who your record says you are. They are clean altogether, and they're clean in conference, and they have a tremendous margin of error between now and the end of the season. They're probably going to Dallas, it looks like, no matter what happens. But my question is simple. Again, the answer might be complex. How good do you think they are?
So I was talking to a buddy of mine earlier, and he's a huge BYU fan, and I said, if you'd asked me a year ago, okay, which of the two teams, BYU or Utah, is the first to go to the college football playoffs, 100 out of 100 people would say Utah. And the reality is right now, BYU is, with their schedule, with the way they've played, it's not just going to the Big 12 championship because first of all, they need to run the table. If they want to go to the playoffs, they need to run the table because one loss will kind of mess them up. So they could be a one-loss team after the conference championship, I believe, and still make the playoffs. And the reality is what I was been so impressed with them. There's not. I don't know that there's a lot of great teams. Maybe the best team in college football is Oregon, but Georgia's lost twice, Alabama's lost twice. Maybe Texas is up there. Ohio State. Maybe those are the three best teams in the country. I don't know, but I think what BYU does and will continue to do is they're always going to give themselves a chance to win every week because they play hard and they play for each other. And it's not one guy. I mean, they do it by committee on defense and offense. And because of that, everyone knows they got to do their part. And it's kind of a good situation to have happen. So I think they'll make the playoffs personally. What happens in the playoffs, you don't have to win every game. You just have to win the one game in front of you. I mean, anything's possible.
All right, Scott. Well, I appreciate the time, man. It was such an interesting night. It's such a crazy game. But have a great week. Best of luck in Boulder, and we'll chat soon, okay?
I appreciate it. Thanks, Vince.
All right, Scott Mitchell, former quarterback for the University of Utah. We're going to bring in Andy Larson coming up on the other side. We'll do a little jazz today because maybe some of you don't want to talk about this rivalry game anymore. Maybe you're done with it. Maybe you've had enough. So we'll do a little jazz with Andy Larson. But we will get back to this because I do want to talk about in the 5 o'clock hour today. We didn't have time to do this earlier, but we have to talk about what Mark Harlan said after the game. We're going to do that coming up on the other side of 5 o'clock, and then we'll go from there. We say goodnight at 6 in time for Monday Night Football. Tyreek Hill is going to play for the Dolphins as they take on the Rams. Let's bring in Ryan from the Dish Pros Cable TV, wireless services, internet options, all more affordable. Ryan has the answers. What's going on, man?
We've got some very cool offers right now. It's some stacked offers where we can throw in that multi-sports pack free for a year, which includes the NFL Red Zone, movie channels, and also Netflix free for 2 years. Guys, that offer alone is worth $370+. It works for customers that currently have Netflix, which most of us do. And, guys, here's the thing. If you're unhappy your current TV situation, or maybe you just saw that rate increase. You saw the bill go up more, and you didn't get more. You just gotta pay more. Call us and let us lower your bill. We see prices drop between $70 to $100+ a month, plus these additional offers. Guys, you're adding just a whole bunch of value to your service. Plus, we also can help you with the internet. Great offers right now too. We've got gift card offers available for new customers for internet. If you saw your bill go up there, lower it. And even with fiber, we have a lot of areas where you can just pay a different provider for the same actual fiber and pay less money. Same thing in the cell phone world. Boost Mobile is building out this 5G network, and as they build it out, they're actually piggybacking off of the biggest wireless provider in the nation's cell towers. So this means you could actually be paying the same company are a different company using the same towers and spending less. And guys, the offer is phenomenal. Get a brand new iPhone 16 Pro or the new Samsung SE free, no trade-in, and spend $20 to $30 a month less per line and get everything you currently have. It's just super easy because you can just call us up. We can get you upgraded, get you new equipment, and have you installed as early as next day, and phones as soon as the very following day. So call us, 424-DISH, 801-424-DISH.
Andy Larson joins us coming up next right here on ESPN 700. All right, we'll get to the drive at 5 coming up. Some thoughts on the post-game comments of Mark Harlan. Didn't have a chance to talk about that earlier. We kind of were up against the clock, so we brought in Dave Fleming, who stopped by, called the game for ESPN. Kyle Bonagura was in town, played Coach Witt, interviewed Scott Mitchell. We'll do a little jazz now, but before we get there, Andy Larson, Salt Lake Tribune. Andy, happy Monday. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. So, Andy, as we've talked about in the past, you're many things. You're not just one thing. Nobody puts Andy in a corner. I will not put you in a box. You cover the Jazz. You do a data column, gamer, golfer, optimist, footy, fanatic, ladies man, Rico Suave. I could keep going, Andy, but you're also.
Please don't.
Okay, fair enough. I got carried away. Got carried away at the very end. You're also a human who lives in Utah. Therefore, Utah BYU football is something that you're aware of. I wonder what your thoughts are in the chaos that ensued in Salt Lake City on Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, there's no shortage of things to talk about after that game. I guess my mind goes to two things. One, Utah should have won that game, right? Like, I mean, I think BYU got a little bit lucky in its fumble luck in how many pass deflections weren't tipped up, but were tipped down into the ground. And so, weren't intercepted. The fumbles weren't recovered. BYU kept the ball, maintained possession, and was able to score on those possessions. I also think that Utah shot itself in the foot a little bit with its play calling in the second half. I mean, and this is something that at least it feels like we've seen, and I want to do a little bit more research on this, but how the play calling changes when Utah has a lead, and just in general how conservative the play calling is, doesn't feel like it matches how teams play offense in 2024, right? Like in kind of a high-octane college football ecosystem, everything is so slow and predictable with the Utes offense, especially when once you got past kind of the midpoint of the third quarter, it felt like it was wind out the clock time when, the Utes, I don't think had that luxury. And then look, I think go ahead.
Oh, I didn't. I'm letting you finish. Keep going. Yeah.
Okay. And then I would say the second thing, honestly, was that the Mark Harlan stuff is a little bit crazy. And look, you know me, I am not one to have any qualms about complaining with the refs. I love complaining about the refs. It's a great time. You can't be on the field as an AD when your team is trying to make a miracle lateral Hail Mary kind of play happen on that kickoff return. It's irresponsible. It's problematic. It's not reflective of good decision making. And frankly, I don't think we've seen that in any other sport, right? Like Larry Miller didn't come down onto the from the stands onto the court to yell at NBA refs, right? Like we don't see that from Ryan Smith or Danny Ainge, that they're actually stopping play and getting a penalty or technical called on themselves. So that was, I think, unfortunate. And, obviously I thought the fine was deserved. And hopefully those people, really Mark Harlan does better next time.
Yep, fair enough. We're going to talk more about this coming up in about 30 minutes from right now. Last thing on this, then we'll do some jazz and maybe a little RSL offseason stuff before we set you loose. What is because I started the show off today, I'm always just so fascinated at the reaction of the fan bases after the fact. Like, the game is one thing, and more often than not, the game is awesome. It very rarely delivers. It usually gets weird. It got really weird on Saturday night. But just kind of some of the, I don't know what you want to call it, just the back and forth, because I find this societal dynamic so interesting with the cultural fabric of our community, where you have a BYU fan base that loves the moral high ground and a Ute fan base that loves to call out the hypocrisy of pious, holier-than-thou judgmental people. And the football game magnifies it. Like, and every single time you get BYU fan who says, send me every video of every Ute fan who misbehaved on Saturday. And then Ute fan who will have videos, because he kept receipts, of BYU fans throwing trash on the Utah players and the Utah coaches and the refs back when Utah won their 7th or 8th straight rivalry game. Like, as someone who, again, is a resident and a human who lives here, what about that dynamic of this football game stands out most to you?
Yeah, look, it's a rivalry game, and I feel like people expect it to be different because it's in Utah and we're so friendly and whatever. But like, if you go to OU Texas or whatever, whatever some of the other top football rivalries in this country, you're going to see some crazy behavior. You're going to see the kind of behavior that comes out when fans are passionate. And like this idea, because Utah is a religious state, more religious state overall, or that things are going to be different in Utah BYU, I don't think is realistic. Like I think ultimately, I saw people on Twitter, for example, talk about like they were surprised that BYU fans were saying curse words during the game. Well, look, of course they were. Like, they're college football fans. They're fans of this thing that they're passionate about. Like, I think, I don't think either fan base is worse than the other. I don't think that either fan base is throwing more. Obviously you don't like to see things thrown onto the field, or you don't like to see assaults happen in the stands or what have you, right? Like that's all bad. But it's also just a ubiquitous part of watching games in stadiums, and has been for the last few decades. So like, there was a fight at like the Broncos-Chiefs game this weekend, and it's just to expect that Utah would be different, or that says anything about Utah fans or BYU fans or whatever, I think is unreasonable to expect.
Well said. All right, moving over to the Utah Jazz. It's going to be an interesting season when it comes to development and storylines. It will not be an interesting season when it comes to scores in the standings, because they're going to be bad. They're bad all year. They're going to be bad all year. They're 2-7 now, which is the worst record in the West. Surprisingly enough, Milwaukee is still bad. Philly needs to get healthy, but those two teams will be fine. The Jazz are going to be the cellar dweller in the West, probably with the Blazers when things kind of settle in. But they did get a win over the Spurs. They got a win over the Bulls last week. So what can you say about kind of where we're at, some things that are standing out? And, it's got to be nice for Will and the players to at least taste some wins here or there to remind them why they're doing all this.
Yeah, and, look, they beat two bad teams, I think, in the Chicago Bulls and San Antonio Spurs. Bulls didn't have Zach LaVine. And yeah, the Spurs had Devin Vassell on a minutes restriction. I just don't think that they're that good. But I do think that it kind of helps the process a little bit to see players do the right kind of things. And I think in those two games, they did do the right kind of things that we haven't seen in the other games, right? They moved the ball much more quickly, much more accurately. They avoided the turnovers, the worst of the turnovers anyway, and got into their offense much more reasonably. I think when the Jazz do that, and frankly, I thought the Bulls defended the Jazz really poorly. That's a very bad defensive team. San Antonio, I think, again, kind of made a ton of different offensive mistakes the Jazz were able to take advantage of. But if you do play basketball the right way, at least that's setting you up moving forward to maybe make that transition easier when you have good players, or you develop the young players that you have, right? I think we've seen some good things from Kyle Filipowski. I think we're seeing Cody Williams, Keontae George, and Isaiah Collier kind of struggle early, although Collier has only played really just the one game. But look, we'll see what happens here. I think the story of the season so far is they are who we thought they were. This is probably one of the worst teams in the league, and we'll see if they're truly worse than the Blazers or the Wizards or what have you. But to this point, this is a team that's pretty far away from contention, and you're still hoping for, huge development. And then obviously you're going to see just significant roster turnover between this team and the next good Jazz team. There's no question about it.
We finally saw Isaiah Collier. He's been banged up, and Keontae was out, so he got the start. The whole thing with him is certainly that three ball, the outside shooting. But he does have a feel for the lead guard position that potentially nobody else outside of Patty Mills has on the roster. And, saw some good things in 25 minutes. He didn't hit any of his 6 3-point attempts, had 6 boards, 4 assists, and actually didn't even turn it over. That's really nice in 25 minutes. So ultimately, what were your impressions game one now that we've seen Isaiah Collier?
Yeah, look, I think, again, some of this is the Spurs, but the offense seemed to run a lot smoother with Collier on the floor. He got into the offense more quickly. He did look more like a real point guard. He was able to break the paint, I think, easier than Keontae George, which kind of makes sense. Like, Keontae is not a plus NBA athlete at that position, where I think Isaiah Collier, the reason why he was considered the number one high school player was because of that athleticism, because of kind of that bowling ball physique, the strength, and then ability to kind of drive past people on the first step. Keontae doesn't really have that. I think Keontae has other skills and is obviously is a better shooter than Collier is, but there was a different aspect to the Jazz's offense. So I'm kind of excited to see how that develops through multiple games, and I certainly hope that Will Hardy gives him the playing time over Patty Mills in order to kind of explore that. But yeah, it was a good performance, except for the fact that he couldn't shoot, and the Spurs were playing Victor Wembanyama on him, and that allowed Wemby to be a kind of free safety on the Jazz's offense, and ultimately that's why Collier didn't finish the game. So, look, if he can't shoot, he can't be an NBA player. That's the rule for point guards everywhere. But if he does develop that shot, then, I think there's a real chance that he becomes a useful player.
So you just referenced something that, not in a vacuum I'll focus on, but I'll expand it out, because you talked about the balancing out of minutes, the distribution of minutes of Patty Mills and Isaiah Collier, and then certainly Keontae George. And really, what's the point of playing Patty a lot of minutes outside of maybe teaching these young kids what it's like to be a pro? Is that real? I don't know. That's what we're supposed to say, so I just said it. But ultimately, what's your takeaway so far about the balancing of young developmental minutes juxtaposed to vets playing here or there? Do you like what Will is doing, or do you think he's leaning too far one way or the other, if that makes sense?
I would say it's been pretty good, with the exception of the Milwaukee game, where Kyle Filipowski and Isaiah Collier weren't in the rotation. And I thought that was pretty it was just a bad decision, and I criticized Will pretty heavily for it in that night's Triple Team post-game article. Like, if this season is about youth development, if this season is about tanking, there's no excuse in the world for giving Patty Mills and Drew Eubanks minutes over Kyle Filipowski and Isaiah Collier when those guys have the potential to be part of your future in a way that Drew Eubanks and Patty Mills don't. And that's what, you remember when I was on the show after the Patty Mills signing, and I was actually pretty frustrated by it, because it did represent that the team had the possibility of playing the vets over the youth. And, I think most of those concerns have been handled. They started Taylor Hendricks. They're now starting Cody Williams. Kyle Filipowski was in the rotation the next game. Isaiah Collier then started. But there has to be, I think, some sort of consistent theme this year that, hey, this is actually the time where we're not messing around. We're not playing the vets, and we're not going to win 25, 30 games here. We're really trying to develop the youth. And he didn't stick to it in the Milwaukee game. He did do it in the San Antonio game. And I hope to see the youth continue to play, because, yeah, look, if we're giving Patty Mills and Drew Eubanks minutes that could go to players that might actually help the next good Jazz team, like, what are we doing here?
All right, so we'll get a couple of RSL thoughts from you, but before we do that, looks like Phoenix is in town tomorrow. I'll be down there, so excited to get down to the stadium. Kevin Durant, the arena. Kevin Durant will not play. What's the update on Keontae, and what are your thoughts on what we could see tomorrow night, as the Phoenix Suns have played really well? Again, no Durant, but they're 8-2 in the West. So give me your thoughts on tomorrow before we get a little RSL from you.
Yeah, Keontae went through practice today, so I would say that's a good sign for him being available tomorrow. We haven't gotten the official injury report yet on whether or not he'll be available or if he's questionable or whatever, but we'll find out. Probably about in an hour or so. And then I would say, I think the Jazz, are probably going to lose against the Suns even without Kevin Durant, but there is a chance there. And I think talking to Keontae today at practice, the team realizes, look, they are in last place in the Western Conference. They're not super likely to make the playoffs. But there is this NBA Cup thing that you can kind of try for and see if you can get something going in a much smaller period of games, and maybe that gives you a little bit of extra incentive. And, obviously the $1 million prize at the end does too. So we'll see. I certainly expect the Jazz not to win tomorrow. I think that's going to be kind of smart for the rest of the season, obviously. But, that is a little bit more at stake with the NBA Cup. And, it's kind of fun to have a different thing during the 82-game regular season with different courts and different attention on it and what have you.
Oh, one more Jazz thing, because I've only been to one game, and it was opening night against Memphis. How are the crowds holding up? Like, are people still showing up? I mean, this is true pain tolerance in a way that I don't think we've had here maybe since Corbin's last year. So are we seeing the crowds continue to show up, and do you think that's something we'll see all year long?
Yeah, look, the last game I was at, obviously the last home game was the Halloween game, right? And with 4 road games since then, the Halloween game there were empty seats at the beginning, and then it seemed like it did fill out pretty well in the second and third quarters. Ticket prices were really cheap. Like, you could get $4 upper bowl tickets, even $14 lower bowl tickets on the secondary market, and I think that's going to continue to be a feature of certain games this season, especially weekday games. But I also think that a little bit fans are willing to pay those prices. If you have those prices low enough, then you can fill the building a little bit. And so I feel bad for kind of the season ticket holders who paid a premium and now aren't getting that value. But I do think like the attendance will be kind of sticky enough that it won't be. I go to every arena in the league, right? And there are teams and markets that have half-empty buildings, even in good team situations. I think even when the Jazz are at their worst, which I think right now, their attendance will still be higher than a lot of markets and a lot of places with better teams.
All right, over to RSL. So since we last spoke, the Lads lost again in penalty kicks, 3rd straight year. Postseason, you could, when you talk about not getting out of group in Leagues Cup, when you talk about losing in the first round of Open Cup and losing in the first round of the playoffs, it's hard to really paint a picture other than, probably not capitalizing on one of the more talented teams we've had here. We've talked about the Gomez stuff. I don't know how much of that there is here. Chicho just stopped scoring, which is like the main thing you need your striker to do, breaking soccer news for you guys. But single-season record for points, single-season records for goals. It's not like it was all bad, but what do you most attribute this team's inability to, when it comes to trophies being at play in tournament soccer, the inability just to get it done kind of even at all?
I mean, I would say, first of all, like, the majority of those points were made in the first half of the season when you're not playing for trophies, right? Like, the Open Cup playoffs and the Leagues Cup playoffs and obviously the MLS Cup playoffs are all at the end of the year, and by that point, you had either gotten rid of Gomez or Chicho was in his extended slump. And by the way, I don't think Chicho's not just scoring goals. I think he's also not doing the other things asked of center forwards, whether it's making quality runs or tracking back on defense or staying engaged in play and engaged in build-up. I don't think he's been really good at any of that really since the suspension. So that's obviously a key concern. I think there are things that can improve on the back line that would have been nice, but ultimately when it came to the playoffs, like, they just weren't good enough offensively. They couldn't break down kind of the shell that Minnesota played in. And in fact, Minnesota ended up having pretty decent spells of possession in those couple of games. So I guess I would say in the end, the level of MLS has raised enough that what RSL has right now, especially in attack, is not good enough. And you're asking for that maybe Chicho does have a resurgent, maybe not. But Gonçalves was a disappointment and was certainly one of the worst center attacking midfielders in MLS when he had those minutes on the pitch in the second half of the year. Mark Zook was nice, but again, was a young player. Diego Luna was very good this year, but also is a young player. I mean, they're just, you look at the other kind of attacking fours, if you will, around the league, and in especially the playoffs, and I'm not sure that RSL's really stands up to that. So, you're looking for more investment, you're looking for more development, and you're looking for more consistency. Add in some backline improvements, and maybe you actually get somewhere. The interesting thing is now that this team's qualified for CONCACAF Champions League, the Champions Cup, I guess they call it now, they have to be ready by early in the season, and those signings will have to be made sooner rather than later. So we'll see if those actually get done.
Last thing, do you run it back with the 2 keepers? What do you do in goal?
Change the keepers. I mean, look, I don't hate having Gavin Beavers as a developmental project. He's still young, and especially given the goalkeeper developmental timeline. I think Zach McMath is a decent option, but I think ultimately was way too mistake prone this year. Get somebody else. I think ultimately it proved that it didn't work this year, despite Zach's pretty good 2 playoff games. And I think they're just replacement level in goalkeeper in the goalkeeper position in MLS is high enough that I think you have to bring in at least another option there for next season.
All right, bud. Thanks for the time. I'll see you at the arena tomorrow night. Okay.
Sounds good. See you then.
Andy Larson covers the Jazz for the Salt Lake Tribune, writes a data column too, does a little RSL. Get him on Twitter at Andy. Depends on who you listen to. It's either Andy B. Larson or Andy Blarson. Every time I read it, I just read it Andy Blarson. But he's on Twitter, so get him there. All right, 5 o'clock hour of the program comes your way next. We have not talked about the comments made post-game by the athletic director of the University of Utah, Mark Harlan, on Saturday. We're going to do that coming up next. Before we say goodnight at 6, Craig Smith coaches show tonight on the station. Let's bring in Ryan from the Dish Pros. Wireless options, cable television, internet too. He can save you money. A lot of good offers. 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
Yeah, so many good offers. And, this triple play offer that we've got put together, we just see so many people that are we can save just, $200-$300 a month. Listen, there's lots of reasons to call. And I know the worst reason is change is hard. But you know what? If change constitutes you saving literally $5,000-$6,000 over the next couple of years, it's simple. Call us up and let's see what we can do to help you. We've got a fantastic offer that's stacked right now with multiple offers that we can offer you. And this was going to end here in one more day. So you can get the fantastic 2-year promotion, price guarantee. We'll throw on movie channels, the multi-sports pack free for a year, which includes the NFL Red Zone. And you can also get Netflix free for 2 years. This offer by itself is worth $370. And we're seeing lots of customers just on the TV side of it between $70 and $100+ a month in savings. You just have to call and see what we can do. If you know you're overpaying, you probably are, or if you think you are, you probably are. Call us and see what we can do for you. We've seen these massive rate increases of 20% on the fiber internet. There's lots of different options now, and you can use the same fiber and pay a different provider and pay less money. It's just that simple. Same thing on the cell phone side. Guys, Boost Mobile is building out the most advanced 5G network, and they have a fantastic package right now where you get set up, you get a new phone every year. It's $65 a month, which includes the phone, not 65 plus payments over time. So most people are out there paying a lot more than that, plus making payments on phones. You can call up and make the switch, and like I was just saying, as Boost builds this network out, they're piggybacking off of the cell towers, the biggest wireless provider in the nation, which means that you could probably use the same cell towers, pay a different provider, $20-$30 a month less, and get a brand new iPhone or Samsung SC free with no trade-in. You just got to call, see what we can do, how much we can save you. It's probably going to be a lot more than you imagined. Call us today. See what we can help you with. 424-DISH. Get the best TV experience out there, and let us save you a ton of money. 424-DISH, 801-424-3474.
3 hours down, 1 hour to go. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. All right, what's going on? Drive at 5 time now. Your commute home on a Monday afternoon starts right now. Congratulations. Always good to have Monday in that rear view mirror. Been a beautiful day outside, and as it is every day, it's great to have you along for the ride. The 5 o'clock hour of the drive is brought to you by LHM Ford. Larry H. Miller and Draper, the Ford King, Utah's #1 volume Ford dealer, and they're going to beat any trade-in price in town by $750 anytime, any day. Find us online at lhmforddraper.com. All right, been a busy Monday, as you would expect, after a chaotic weekend behind us. Featuring the Utah-BYU football game, it is Reaction Monday for the rivalry week that is now behind us and BYU's win that is now set in stone. 22-21, Brigham Young gets the win. It was a really fun night. I was up there the whole night, was able to watch on the sidelines with Sean and Porter and a bunch of old Utah football players, and was able to go there pregame and say hello to Kalani and A-Rod and some of our friends down at BYU TV and just enjoy the atmosphere. And, of course, a lot of the conversation today is about the controversy at the end of the game, the holding penalty that allowed Brigham Young another chance to drive down the field, which they did, and you credit them for that certainly. And another game-winning field goal kicked by Will Farron, who has a phenomenal mustache and is a great kicker after – Jake Retzlaff found Chase Roberts down the middle of the field for 30 yards. Hinkley Rapati rushes for 14, and suddenly the realization sets in that Brigham Young is within field goal range. Utah elects to burn their timeouts. They didn't have any left to essentially ice the kicker. Of course, Kyle trying to get some time on the clock to give the Utes one more chance, and there was technically one more chance. It was an exercise in futility. A bunch of Hail Marys ended the game. But walking home from the game, I stayed for the post-game stuff, so it's like 2 a.m. Walking home from the game, I live up close to campus, and I'm figuring things have probably been a little bit chaotic. I didn't really pay attention to social media right after the game. I figured I'd just go home, watch the highlights, and suddenly my phone blows up. Suddenly I get text messages, I get DMs, I get alerts that Utah Athletic Director Mark Harlan had held a post-game press conference that sounded a little bit like this.
For 12 years, this game was absolutely stolen from us. We were excited about being in the Big 12, but tonight I am not. We won this game. Someone else stole it from us. Very disappointed. I will talk to the commissioner. This was not fair to our team. I'm disgusted by the professionalism of the officiating crew tonight. Thank you. For 12 years, this game was absolutely stolen.
I'm sure you have heard the sound by 30, 40, 50 times by now. And when I heard it, I just went, oh, dear. Okay, so we didn't have a chance to get into this earlier, so let's dig into it right now. First of all, I don't know this. I've not spoken to Mark. I have a good relationship with Mark Harlan. I think he's a smart guy. I think he's a good leader. And that's kind of full stop for me. So I just wanted to get that out there. And my guess is, as we all do from time to time, and certainly the guy on the other side of the microphone is no exception here, you just want a mulligan at times for things you've said and done when emotions are sky high. The text message you sent that you wish you didn't, the email that you sent that you wish you didn't. And in this case, my guess is, and I don't know, we've reached out to hopefully get Mark on the show this week. My guess is in a moment of clear-eyed thinking and 48 hours later, my guess is Mark would like a mulligan. I don't know that. I can't speak for him, and we'll let his statement speak for him that we're going to read in a moment because Mark did release a statement last night that we talked about earlier, and we sent out on all of our socials in case you didn't see it. It's up on my Twitter. It's up all over the place. So we'll get to the statement in a moment. But, look, we just simply have all been there. And I cannot spin what he said anything other than somewhat embarrassing and way off base. I can't do that, even though I like him and even though we're the broadcast home of the Utes. That was a bad look for the athletic director at the University of Utah. It was a bad look for Mark to be out there on the field berating the officials when the game was ending. There's video evidence. That's a bad look. There's no other way to spin that. I can't do it. I won't do it. But I'm also not a gotcha radio guy. I'm not a gotcha radio host. I just have to call it how I see it. I try to be truthful I try to be authentic. And Mark's not the first guy that I like personally that I adamantly disagree with as far as his approach professionally, but I really believe that he would probably want a mulligan if you asked him today. That's not how the world works. As my mama likes to say, consequences are a bitch, okay? That's the deal. You make a decision, you make a mistake, you got to pay the piper. You can't skirt this stuff. It's just kind of how it goes. So the statement that Mark released last night after the outcry, and I'm sure he's heard from a lot of people, I've seen some social media reaction, going as far as to call for the man's job. You people need to frickin' chill, okay? Calm down. Everyone needs to calm down. It was an emotional night. Should he have said that? No. Should he have been on the field berating officials? No. Did he have a beef? Probably. And we've talked about that all show long. I would have been frustrated. We saw Coach Witt throw a chair after his media availability. We heard from a lot of people that were very upset. And we've talked about the call throughout the entire show today, okay? So I understand the frustration. This is a program that was the preseason favorite to win the Big 12, and they're on a 5-game losing streak. You just lost to your rival in heartbreaking fashion after you thought the game was over twice. BYU gets the timeout in, and then the holding call that shook the entire community takes place. They get another shot. Retzlaff makes plays, as he's done all year. So credit that young man for staying in the fight, and credit BYU for getting it done when they had to get it done. So the statement that Mark released last night goes like this, quote, "Last night following our game against BYU, I made clear my feelings related to the game officiating. However, I recognize that there are more appropriate times and avenues to express those concerns, and I accept the consequences of my decision. My comments came after having just left our locker room where our student athletes were hurting and upset. The University of Utah is proud to be a member of the Big 12 Conference, and we look to working with our peers to continue to enhance the league. BYU, Coach Satake, and their coaches and student athletes are having a terrific season, and we wish them the very best." Statement seems to be missing two very key words. I'm sorry. Why can't we do that? Like, who is behind the PR approach of all of these people that get caught in emotional moments? And people will, by the way, forgive. People are redeemable. People will give second, third chances. You just have to show authenticity. You have to put in the work, and you have to really show that you blew it. And you know that you blew it. This statement falls short of that. I mean, honestly, I'm hoping to interview him this week. And if he doesn't do my show, maybe he does Sean's show or whatever. And he needs to say that he was out of bounds, and he apologizes for what he said on Saturday night. Because it really is a microcosm of a much bigger issue in our country. I mean, look, for Mark after the game to say we won the game and it was stolen from us, I was expecting to wake up to audio of Mark calling Brett Yormark and asking Yormark if he could find him 2 points for Utah. I mean, there's some real stop the steal energy here. And what are we going to do? Are we going to go storm the Big 12 headquarters in Irving, Texas? Like, this is a bad look. It was a bad look in the moment. It's a bad look 48 hours later. And I want to reiterate that I like Mark a lot, and I think he's a sharp guy, and I think we have a good relationship. Maybe today ends that. I don't know. I hope not, because I'm just calling it how I see it. It would go a long way for Mark Harlan or anybody else, Spence Checketts, third person on a Monday. What? Anybody else who says something or does something in an emotional moment and makes a mistake, as I have multiple times, and most people do, the only way out of it really is to look in the mirror when you lose. Whether it's politics, whether it's football, whether it's just day-to-day life. We are bad at taking L's in America, and taking L's is part of life. I tried to teach my son that when he was young, growing up playing sports. He was devastated if his teams lost, elated, of course, if his teams won. That's part of the deal. Winning and losing is part of life. And we seem to be existing in this reality where one side of the spectrum either wins or cheats, and it seems to be permeating throughout the discourse of everything in America. And it's bizarre to me. You lost the game. It sucked. Do you have a beef about the officiating? Yeah, you do. We've talked about it all day. Should you have been frustrated? For sure. I think most people were frustrated. Does it add fuel to the fire that you lost to those guys? Yeah, it does. Does it add fuel to the fire that you're the preseason Big 12 favorite and have one conference win? Yeah, it does. And I get it. And football is so vital to any athletic department that Mark has to make sure that he's taking care of his football program. And, I've thought about it ever since I first heard the soundbite. When it was sent to me, and I pulled it up when I was on my way home, and I listened to it, and I went, oh, my dear Lord. I've thought about the scenarios. Like, what motivates a smart, measured guy to react with emotion in the moment and say something that is just so unfounded in so many ways? Like, what is it? Was he trying to show his football coach that he has his back? I don't know what the nature of the relationship is of Mark Harlan and Kyle Whittingham. I really don't. No idea. I don't know if they're buds. I don't know if they hate each other. I have no idea. But are you trying to show your coach that you're tough too? Are you trying to show your coach you're a football guy? I'm going to go berate the officials as the athletic director. And then after the game, I'm going to hold a press conference where I'm going to throw bleep against the wall and see if any of it stick. Like, what did he think was going to happen? He was going to call Brett Yormark that night and be like, dude, just put a couple more points on the board. We're good here, right? Brett Yormark, we interviewed him, Big 12 Media Day, Northeast dude, no nonsense, sleep with the fishes type guy, not the type of guy that you want to be messing with. So Mark is publicly reprimanded. He's fined $40,000. But the statement falls short of the mark, dude. It just does. There's no other way to say it. The statement falls short. The post-game press conference was a cringy, bad, embarrassing look for the university, and Mark knows that he has to be better than that. Like I said, on a Monday, my guess is he would like a mulligan, but that's not the way it works. So was it just frustration in the moment? Was it just emotion that allowed a otherwise measured, smart guy to go all in on a message that is clearly out of bounds? Was he trying to stick up for his football team? Does he really think the Big 12 isn't where it's at? Does he really think, as a lot of people believe about Utah football, that Utah football believes they're a Big 10 school and the Big 12 isn't good enough? Does he really believe any of that? I don't know. Only he knows. But it was an emotional night. His motivation for doing that, I'm unclear. He doesn't strike me as a guy that just wants the spotlight all the time, like wants to be one of these celebrity athletic directors. He doesn't strike me as that type of guy. I don't think it was for attention. I honestly think in the moment he was really frustrated, and understandably so, as a result of some very inconsistent officiating. Yes, by the letter of the law, there was a holding situation that occurred, okay? But as we've talked about all day, it's not necessarily the call in the vacuum. BYU fans will tell you that it is, but it's not, okay? It's about the way the game was called all game long, whether or not there was enough consistency. And as a couple of our guests have pointed out, is this just kind of the deal all year long? Then suddenly you're changing it in one play. I don't think that the fact that Jake Retzlaff was essentially already being sacked is germane to the conversation, but the play didn't really have an outcome. It didn't really have an effect on the outcome of the game. You could have let that thing go. I get it. I really do. So yes, we're so bad at this when you try to talk about all the things that can be true. And I always land on the side of, okay, well, you're mad that you lost. You're mad at the refs. How about get 3 on the board in the second half? How about not have 5 punts? How about do what you have to do to win the game? I've never blamed the refs guy, and I think the messaging, honestly, was clunky. And I think probably at some point there needs to be a little bit more of a mea culpa. All right, we'll talk more about this. Kyle Bonagura from ESPN is our guest coming up on the other side. We'll say goodnight at 6 for the Craig Smith Coaches Show on a Monday Drive right here on ESPN 700. You trying to make people cry on a Monday afternoon as we end the show? Are you trying to make Ute fans driving around town listening to the show get emotional with this Rolling Stones bump?
I'm not trying to make them cry, but I like to put a relatable, connected song to the bump sometimes, especially on the way out.
It does work. It does work. I mean, but do you think Ute fans really got what they needed? Or is that the magic of the song? Because you don't know what you need at the time, it manifests later on.
I'll be completely honest with you if we can go there.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's a fan base. It's a team. It's a institution. It is a media sphere that has grown very accustomed to Kyle Whittingham and that team winning 8, 9, 10, 11 games every single year and having good, fun games to discuss and having – not a whole lot to ho-hum about in the last couple of years. That has changed in a big way. And maybe some folks who are a little spoiled college football fans, not saying it's not, part of the game. Everyone is a spoiled college football fan if they're a college football fan. But maybe a little dose of perspective, reality. I as a Hokies fan the other night, I went back to the situation against Miami, right, where I felt wronged. I felt I felt they took that game from Virginia Tech. And so I get it. I understand the heat of the moment. But what you didn't see in the postgame and in the reaction, and that was people going out on the field and interrupting the action and, making it a point in postgame. You live and you learn, you move on, and hopefully the Utes can learn from this one. And again, all is not lost. Maybe on this season, but it's all cyclical in college football. You'll have your laughs too, and they probably won't be as far in the future as it may feel like right now.
Well said. Good perspective on a Monday afternoon, Monday evening. Hopefully you had a great weekend, off to a good start to your work week. Got to tell you about Prize Picks. So I hit a 6-pick Prize Pick lineup last week.
Hey-o.
Yeah, it was good. I'm going to tell you what it is. So Prize Picks, they hooked me up with a little promotional money. I bet $25 to win $300, and I nailed Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, Mike Gesicki, and Lamar Jackson. So I've found this to be the easiest way to actually win money playing sports because you don't have to worry about the lines, the over-under, the spread, the money line. All you have to do, and you can do this if you're a sports fan. Like tonight, we've got a little we've got a little Dolphins and we've got a little Rams action, Monday Night Football. So I just put in my lineup, and it's very easy. I got Puka Nacua more than 6.5 catches. I've got Cooper Kupp more than 0.5 touchdowns. I've got Matt Stafford, Tyreek Hill. It's just more or less player stat projections. That's all it is. It's really easy to do. And ultimately, they're giving you free money to check it out. So you get $50 after you place your first $5 bet. After you download the Prize Picks app and use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 instantly after you play your first lineup. Promo code ESPN700 to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Really easy to do. Prize Picks. Run your game all season long. All right, Porter, what comes our way on a Tuesday edition of the show?
Yeah, on a Tuesday edition of the show, it's going to be a fun one. JP Chunga is going to stop by, the voice of the Salt Lake City Stars. Excited for JP. It's going to be fun to see him do that, and obviously a former producer of this here program.
Sure.
Tim McMahon is going to drop by the program for your NBA Daily Assist.
Another protege of mine.
Of course, Stevenson Sylvester for some college football, and of course reaction to Utah BYU, and we'll go from there. JP may swing around in studio, so we may have him for a few segments.
All right, good stuff. We will say goodnight. Special thank you today to Dave Fleming, Kyle Bonagura, Kyle Whittingham, Scott Mitchell, and Andy Larson. Any of the sound you may have missed, go to the website, ESPN700sports.com. Check out our mobile app. Take us on the go. It's how I listen to our station. It is the ESPN 700 app, available in the App Store or the Google Play Store. Then finally, for what we do in our space, 4 hours every afternoon, check out our podcast page. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. That's available wherever you get your shows. Subscribe, rate, review, say nice things, give us all the stars. You will be eternally blessed. He's Porter. I'm Spence saying goodnight. Craig Smith Coach's Show coming up next right here on ESPN 700.